All right, we're going to get started. This webinar, I think personally, is one of the more important webinars that I've ever done in terms of motivating people that are on here and telling you some of the greatest secrets of success for attorneys and how to become successful basically by using your mind. And just as a introduction to this, as an attorney, you face so many people, and a law student even, trying to knock you down. When you try to get into law school, you take the LSATs, and that's one thing trying to knock you down. And then just made a list of some things here. When you get into law school, the best one you get into is what it is, but then your grades in law school trying to knock you down. And then when you try to get a summer job, that's another thing that you maybe believe knocks you down. And then when you get a job when you're out of law school, your first job, that's another thing when you get negative feedback often from the legal market. And then when you start your first job, there's people within the firm trying to knock you down. You can get fired. All these things can happen, or you make mistakes. And so that's another thing trying to knock you down. And then when you finally, if you need to get another job, that's not always is rewarding, because the lateral market for a lot of attorneys is very difficult. The majority of them, you may feel you're not getting paid enough. You may feel when you're an attorney, the other side's trying to knock you down. Attorneys in your own firm and your peers are trying to knock you down. And even something as simple as not being home because you're working all the time causes problems in your relationships with your significant other. And people will come along and who knows, try to knock you down. There's so much pressure of people coming at every attorney, trying to knock them down. I've seen people that I practice with quit and then not have anything to do and commit crimes and go to prison. I've seen multiple people that I know just that had all this pressure and things and ended up having heart attacks and dying and all this sort of stuff at a very young age, in their like early 40s. So your health can suffer, and that is another thing. Your own body is knocking you down. You have just all of these pressures. A lot of people, a ton of them, because of all this, they can't cope. And so they start drinking. They drink too much. They use drugs too much. They engage in all sorts of behaviors to cope. They get pills for psychiatric drugs that they never needed before. So all these things are really trying to knock you down. And so what this is about is how to really condition your mind to overcome all this. But it's not just about condition your mind. I'm going to give you examples of attorneys that I know that have learned this and how you can really empower your career if you understand all these things trying to knock you down, and you'll be able to push through them. Because obviously lots of people push through these. They become very successful and happy partners in law firms. They have happy families. They do very well. They become important national figures in their practice area or as attorneys. So even despite all these things knocking you down, there's definitely some very simple ways to step away from this and win. And that's what I'm going to try to do for you today. I'm going to try to show you how you can build yourself up and how you can identify this sort of person, these traits that are going to make you successful. And the first thing I want to say is that in order to develop what I'm going to talk about today, it doesn't matter who you are. Most people don't do what I'm telling you. You could have gone to a top law school and be at a top firm. And as a matter of fact, a lot of people that didn't go to the best law schools and best firms never understand this and have unsatisfied and unproductive careers. They don't know why, because they feel that they're entitled to this because they've got good LSAT scores and got into a good school. They often don't do it, just as when people that went to every other type of school and worked at every other type of firm, some do this and others don't. So your whole success in practicing law has nothing to do with whatever happened with you in terms of the first job you got, even the second or third job. It doesn't have anything to do with any failures you have. It doesn't have anything to do with anything other than understanding how to follow the stuff I'm talking about with you today. What I'm going to talk to you about today too is something that has changed the lives of most successful people that have become extremely successful by following what I'm going to talk about. It's not just legal careers, it's everything. And when you understand that, you're going to do better. And it's only just uh, a few quick changes to how you think about things that anyone can implement. And I'll give you examples of lawyers doing it, of people I know doing it, and how it helped them. But honestly, regardless of where you think you are right now, you don't have to be average. You don't even have, you don't even have to be good. You could be extraordinary and an example for even future generations of your family, if you understand this. So that's what I'm going to talk about today. Also, this is a live webinar. After this presentation, I'll take questions. And typically, if you're new to the webinar, what happens is typically do the presentation, then take a quick break for a minute or two, and then come back and answer questions. Typically are not always about the webinar. There tend to be more people having career questions and questions about things that they're experiencing in their career, whether it's setbacks or questions about what they want. And then the questions are all anonymous. So if you're logged into Zoom, I won't show your name. And so you can ask all of your questions anonymously. This is what happens when I interview someone for a position. I try to be pretty informal when I talk to people, but typically I'll start just talking to people and I'll say something. So what's going on? And typically when you ask somebody what's going on, that's a little off-putting. They wonder why you're being so casual to start. But what this means really, when you ask this question, is what made you apply for this job? And this is a very loaded question. And anybody that knows what they're doing, any employer can quickly and efficiently, if they have enough applicants, eliminate people who might otherwise be a perfect fit for the position. And they should, if they have enough applicants, because anyone that hires you should not be hiring you unless you have concrete reasons for wanting to work in that firm or wherever you're interviewing. Most people do definitely not have good enough reasons for applying to positions. They're applying, when they apply, they think I'm this type of attorney and therefore I'm a good prospect for this job and you should interview and hire me. So people that go into interviews like this do far worse than they might otherwise do. And as a matter of fact, most people that go into interviews don't get the job. Some do, but most people don't, because they go in with this kind of aimless idea that they might want to work in this law firm, but they don't have any real compelling reasons to. And the firm picks up on that and wants to hire people that want them, just as you would. Why wouldn't you? Yesterday, for example, I interviewed someone from BCG. The person worked at a top law firm, but there was nothing in their background that indicated any interest in what we do. There wasn't anything in their cover letter either. And the only reason that I interviewed the person was because they'd applied for the position like 7 or 8 times over a few weeks. And I realized that they were obviously very interested in it and they just kept applying. And so I assumed they must have some interest in the job. I didn't understand why they were so interested, but I wanted to find out. And then when you know about the employer and you've spoken with people there and you've gone out of your way to be sold on them, then and believe in the job and the employer, employers want to hire you. When this person entered the interview, however, they knew very little about the company and almost nothing about the job. Now, I just want you to back up and think about what I'm saying for a moment. What I'm saying is, if you go into an interview and you know everything about the employer and you really want to work there and you're vibrating in that frequency, the firms, they're going to pick this up. They're going to be like, wow, this person's on, they really want it. And that's the kind of person that gets hired. It's not someone that just has these nondescript reasons for applying and just thinks you should interview them and you can do the work. That's crazy. This is not what people are looking for. They're looking for people that actually know what they want and what it looks like they're going to get what they want through your firm. So a lot of people, like this recruiter candidate, was more focused on compensation, looking for me to sell them on the job, and just bragged about their various accomplishments. And some of these weren't exactly things that the person blurted out without me asking them, but they said things such as, I took calculus when I was 14 and just talked about all sorts of things that were not really relevant. And then at one point, this particular attorney said that they thought I was recruiting them to try to work in a law firm rather than working for the company. So they were just being not too nice, thinking that's the only reason I was talking to them. These kind of mistakes in interviews are very common. People apply to positions without knowing many times what the employer is about, or they just have vague understandings of their reputation. They don't often know what the setting's like, what the opportunity's like, and they've definitely not pre-sold themselves on the job before applying there. You need to, when you apply, even if you don't do it initially, you need to pre-sold before you go into an interview. You need to pre-sell yourself on the job. You need to know it's what you want. And I know people literally that have risen from nothing, with never worked in a law firm and started their own firms, and now are companies within the legal space that were hundreds of millions of dollars, and done it very quickly. I met a guy at this AI roundtable, which there were not many people there. There were like 6, and he'd started a company like 3.5 years ago in the legal profession that has already gotten a $1 billion valuation. What it does is it gives settlements, or it tells other law firms what people are settling, or tells other personal injury attorneys what cases settle for privately, since 97% of cases settle. He started that company because his family got a bad deal in a settlement. But anyway, he started something knowing exactly what he wanted and created this huge company that's got a $1 billion valuation in 3.5 years. This is what people do that know what they want. Jeff Bezos had a vision what Amazon could be. I remember not too long ago, there's a video online of him just talking to some random local reporter in Seattle or something, and saying that he was going to build this huge company when he didn't even work in his house. And this is the kind of stuff that you need to understand. And everyone that achieves anything of significance knows exactly what they want. They're incredibly committed to it. And you can do this too. It doesn't matter what your background is. It doesn't matter if you have a good background or a bad background or whatever. If you understand what I'm going to talk to you about today, that you really can do pretty much anything you want in the legal profession or otherwise. You can achieve anything. And it's a very simple formula. And it's something that everyone that becomes successful does. And everyone that's not successful doesn't do this. So all you need to do is develop this mindset. I will give you resources. I'm not by any stretch of the imagination some sort of guru that understands, that has come up with these theories. I'm someone that knows what the prominent ways that people have done this are, because I've studied it. It's taken me from growing up in a 2-bedroom house in Detroit, to not having good role models and things, and to what I am today, which is far different. And it's enabled me to do all this while people are all around me trying to knock me down, whether it's competitors, working with, anyway, but it's just lots and lots of people. No matter who you are, people are trying to knock you down. Imagine being a politician, or president, or trying to run any politician. Everyone's trying to knock you down, whether you're the president of a university, whether you're whoever you are, people are trying to knock you down. And the only way to overcome any of this is to understand what I'm going to talk to you about today, because most people get knocked down and give up. I see people, attorneys all the time. It's very common for attorneys to lose their jobs within 6 months of starting their first job. A lot of times they give up. Sometimes people fail the bar multiple times. They give up. All this stuff happens. It's nothing that's unusual. People get fired from jobs all the time and they give up. People just give up, or they don't amount to their full potential ever. And they're never going to be the person they're capable of because of these mistakes. So many attorneys and law students and others don't have goals. Honestly, they don't. They don't have mission statements and know where they should be going and what is important. They just go along with what others are doing, and those maybe become their goals. And there's some truth to this. If you go to a very good law school, the goals of the people there are going to be to work in big firms. And if you go to Yale, the goals may be to go into public service. So you do oftentimes have goals that are relative to the people you're working with. But for the most part, most people's goals are related to don't have them. And there are very few people that I've personally ever interviewed that have very clear goals. Very few people. But there are very few people that I know who did not have goals, that did not achieve them. Most people do not know what they want. They have no idea. And they know vaguely, but they don't know where they want to work. They don't know where they want to go when they get there. They don't have any direction. But this is the most important thing. This is more important. It's more important to start at a horrible law firm and have goals than it is to start at a great law firm and have no goals. These are very important things. And it's something you need to understand. If you're going to get a job in advance while you're there, you need to pre-sell yourself. You need to literally get into a white hot frenzy about whatever it is you want to do with your career and life and go in this direction. This particular stuff I'm talking to you about, by the way, is something that I've been teaching for a long time. I've taken people with this message and helped them transform their lives with this. I'm going to talk a lot about this today, but this sort of thing can change your life. And I'm not talking about just writing down some general goals and things. I'm going to talk to you about how to really do this. And it's all in a state of mind. It's something that you will know in your head that you won't need to, you will know you can do it. Your goals may be working in a law firm. They may be working for the government. They may be working in-house. But regardless of what you're seeking, you need to understand exactly what you want. And you need to be enthusiastic. It's going to be apparent when you get into interviews, when you apply for jobs, you're going to know exactly how to convey this information. You're going to look the part. You're going to talk the part. Your eyes, your connection, what you say, everything is going to come through because this is something you want and you're going to be fired up about it. And this, by the way, is literally the most important thing. For years, not for years, but for a couple of years, I would talk to people about starting young attorneys about working for me as an attorney that had graduated from UCLA Law School. And for whatever reason, I would typically call them, when I did this, the few years I did it, I would do it and call them the fall. And invariably, or maybe November, that sort of thing. And invariably, they would send me some resumes, typically a lot of people, not a lot, but maybe 15 or so that weren't employed. The people that came in that I interviewed had no idea what they wanted and nothing. They were completely, they didn't connect with what I was talking about. They didn't have any particular interest in law firm and nothing came through. And that's why they were unemployed, because UCLA is a great law school. But if you don't know what you want, what are you going to get? You're going to communicate just this kind of boring lack of motivation personality that's not going to do anyone any good. And you're going to go through probably your life like this and then blame the system and say, oh, it's too competitive, or that, no, it's not too competitive. It doesn't matter where you go to law school. You can literally get into anywhere over time if you're setting the right goals for yourself. So anytime you go into any interview, you need to pre-sell yourself. You need to, even before applying, you need to pre-sell yourself in the cover letter. You need to pre-sell yourself in the resume. And you've got to basically have a show for the interview already pre-sold and working for the employer. If you care about your career and you want to be the best you can, you should go and review resume webinars I've done. You should do everything you possibly can to be sold and to put your best foot forward. There's so many things you can do, but your resume, your cover letter, and everything enables you to pre-sell yourself on working for that employer. You need to pre-sell yourself on wanting to work in the employer's location. You need to pre-sell yourself on the fact that you can live on other compensations enough. You need to pre-sell yourself on who you're going to be working with, that they seem so interesting, that they have this experts in this. You need to pre-sell yourself on the fact that you can see yourself doing well in that place and going and rising. And then you need to sell yourself on how that firm fits in with their overall goals. This is what people do to get the best jobs. This is what people do that become partners in law firms. Some do it more, some do it less, but the more you do this, the more better off you're going to be. I'm going to tell you how to do it. And any employer that interviews someone like that, that's so pre-sold and enthusiastic, is going to, and you're going to get better jobs than your background experience would indicate. And if you're not pre-sold and don't want the job, then it's become apparent and the employers will hire someone else. You would too. If somebody walks into an interview and you have and they don't really seem interested in working for you or whatever, why would you hire them? Unless you just had some need and you couldn't fill it with anyone, you would not hire them. Too many people, maybe one of you, because you have never heard this kind of message, are really living and working soulless and pretty aimless lives. They're just doing their thing. A guy that kind of motivated me when I was much younger, and he was interesting anyway. He had this window washing business, and it's not important to really discuss what he did, but The point is that he always used to say, a mailman, what is a mailman doing? He's just delivering the mail. There's nothing, they do their job well, but it's not their life's mission is not to deliver the mail. So they're just living these lives that don't have, at least at work, a lot of aim. And too many people are working like that. People work like this in law firms. They just go in and shuffle papers. And frankly, the worst attorneys are often the best credentialed because that's what they're doing. They're just saying, I got to get my hours in and this kind of stuff. So people go to work each day in pursuit of money. People work at firms based on how much they pay and they think they should be working in the highest paying firm. They don't necessarily believe in anything except making more money with their salaries. There's no motivation. And you need to believe in what you're doing, because if you don't have goals and you don't know what you want, you're going to be taken advantage of by employers, by clients, and you're going to settle and never get to where you could, because you just are letting other people set your goals. You're being part of someone else's goals. Think about your life right now. If you're in a law firm, are you part of someone else's goals of the partners? Or are you working towards your goals? And think about that. So my life is, for the most part, it's not perfect, and I don't follow this advice 100%, but I certainly try to. My life reflects, and surroundings reflect goals that I've had that I pre-sold myself on a long time ago. And your life can be the same. You should be pre-selling yourself on goals, and you should have actually one major goal, which I'll talk about in a little bit. But your life is the same, regardless of the stage of your career. You can start pre-selling yourself on your goals right now. Some people do it when they're in their 20s. Some people do it when they're 30s. Some people do it when they're in their 40s. Some people do it when they're in their 50s. It's never too late. You can always pre-sell yourself on goals. And when I finished my first year of law school, so I'm just going to give you a little bit of insight into the power of goals. So when I finished my first year of law school, I wasn't happy. I'd worked really hard in my first year, but not nearly as hard as I didn't do nearly as well as I thought I would. I've always been used to doing well, and I got there, and all of a sudden, my first semester grades weren't very good. My second semesters were great, but my first were not good, which I knew would take me out of the running for a lot of firms. And I'd never seen people so competitive. I just had never seen it. I was suddenly confronted with people that were lying to me and playing games and all this sort of stuff. And I didn't think this was a lot of fun. I was like, what is going on? Now, the school, and there's a lot of good things about it, and there were a lot of people I liked, but it was very competitive, and it was this hidden competitiveness. It was weird. And I'd never seen anything like it. And just to give you a little bit of background, before going to law school, I was an asphalt contractor. I found it very exciting and fun. The people that I met seemed to appreciate the service a lot. I liked being outdoors. I felt I was doing well and hiring people and running the business. I was in control because I could control how much money I was making. I visualized myself as having a giant company that was doing roads and things all over the country. And it was very inspiring. And in contrast, the law seemed this kind of weird atmosphere, which I'm sure you've experienced too, where people were undermining each other. And this is what lawyers do. They undermine the other side in deals and things. It's sometimes associates take the fall for partners' mistakes, and all these sorts of things happen. So you're always being undermined. You're being undermined if you're in a law firm where your peers are trying to make you look something wrong with you. If they learn about your personal life, they will use that against you. If they learn about mistakes you made, that will be used against you. There's really no confidence in people. You can't trust most people with your problems and issues and personal life, because it can be used against you. You're going to be undermined. And this is just how it works. So it's pretty scary. And so I also saw in the legal profession and seen that there's so much competition for jobs and clients. Some of these firms, by the way, get hundreds of applications for one job, hundreds. And so there's a lot of rejection. There's a lot of unhappiness that comes with this rejection. And there's a lot of stress, much different stress than being an asphalt contractor. Asphalt contracting is like, there's this huge world of opportunity and not enough people doing the work. Even where I was at Detroit, there was not enough skilled people doing the work. The world was for your taking. The people that were doing it weren't as well organized as they should have been. So I was confused about what I was doing. And I had some doubts when I was in law school. I'm doing the right thing. I'm giving up this great profession to go do this. But none of it mattered. Early in my college career, after my first semester of law school, when I talked to or my first semester of college, when I talked to a guidance counselor, I figured out, I asked what I needed to do to get into a good law school, because she told me that the only schools you should be going to are, if you want to get into a good firm, or at least you need to get these kind of grades. So I realized that I needed to develop the background and grades that were important in law school. So I set a goal. And as part of that goal, by the way, I was familiar with a lot of self-help literature, like things like Think and Grow Rich was a major impact on how I thought about things. And I also like reading things like Unlimited Power by Tony Robbins and things that also got me very interested. And so I went out of my way to develop the background and grades that would be important to law schools. And I know how to set goals. Very early on, I even settled the school I wanted to go to, which I've talked about in past webinars. I started contacting the school by asking them questions and things about courses. They'd probably never seen anything like it. The admissions officer. And by the time I ended up applying, they knew exactly who I was and how much I wanted to go there. And it was my first choice and so forth. And early on, I learned that if you want something, you need to do whatever you can to go after it and be attractive to that person, place, or thing. It's just what you need to do. You need to actually know you want it. It's very interesting. Not too long ago, a couple of years ago, I had lunch with the admissions dean, and just he and I had lunch, and where we talked about admissions and so forth. And we didn't talk about this specifically. He talked about how they increased the quality of applicants, how they got more applicants and things. But one thing I noticed is they're very high, very low class size. So they might have 18, or I think last year they got 35,000 applications. They sent out 18 acceptances, and then they had something like 1,500 people that ended up enrolling. And so what does that mean? So that means very few people rejected their offers. What they do, and my daughter was explaining this to me because she's applying to colleges, is they fill most of their class with the people that do early decision and commit to going there. So if you're one of the applicants that says, I want to go here, if I'm not applying to other schools, if I get in, I'll rescind all my applications. This is exactly what I want. So that's where they get the majority of their applications. They have a very low rejection rate. But if you just apply normally, it might be like 1%. So the people that do the best know what they want. It's like that with colleges. It's about all this sort of stuff. You have to know what you want. Of course, the school is going to prefer admitting people that know exactly that they want to go there and they don't have any doubt. If you want something, you need to do whatever you can. I'll tell you another quick story that was fun. I applied to, what is this school? Washington & Lee, which I don't know why I got interested in it. I think it's a good writing program or something. When I was in, that's a great school for college. They sent me a letter in the mail. They said, we want to know if this is your first choice school because we're interested in you. If it is, will you check off here? If it's not, will you check off here? So I checked off, no, it wasn't my first choice. And then a week later, I got a rejection letter. So you have to know what you want. Everybody expects you to know what you want. Colleges expect you to know what you want. Employers expect you to know what you want. You have to know what you want. And if you know what you want, the world's going to open up to you. At the end of my first year of law school, and I'm telling you these law school stories because I think you can probably relate to them, I was very confused. I just felt alone. I didn't understand this competitive environment. I was questioning what I was doing. Instead of this summer job doing asphalt work where I would go out and have fun and get tan and make money and have all these people working for me and have these trucks and all this fun stuff, earning thousands of dollars a week, I was working for free in the Justice Department in Washington, D.C. This is what I was doing instead of what I really loved at the time. And I was staying in a cheap hotel that was down the street from the Justice Department. And they literally sold the gift store. It was a seedy hotel. They sold handcuffs and all these adult toys and stuff in the gift shop. They had more of that than they had like potato chips and things. And then my room looked at an industrial air conditioning unit the size of a house, and it blocked, not quite that big, but it blocked all the light coming in the room. And it shook so hard at night that my bed would like scurry across the floor sometimes. And so this was, if I wasn't in it, it's just crazy. And when I'd been an asphalt contractor, I'd gotten a really nice loft apartment in Detroit in the summers that had like a gym. It was nice. And here I was in this environment working for free. And I wasn't enjoying myself. And then one evening, this is just tell you this existence, I went to I was trying to watch television in my room over the roar of the air conditioner. And I went to get a soda from the vending machine, and there was a drunk guy peeing in the ice floor maker on my floor. So I'm thinking like, what the hell, where am I? What is this profession? But regardless, I knew that this was the best career option that I had at the time. And if I was going to embrace it, I needed to embrace it. If I was going to succeed, I needed to do well at it. And I needed to become enthusiastic about practicing law. I needed, and law firms and the city I wanted to work in and what I needed to do. These were things that I had learned in studying some of these books and success philosophies that I was talking about earlier. I needed to have a goal related to practicing law. Otherwise, this is where I was going. I was literally working for free, staying in a flea bag hotel and not enjoying myself. It wasn't fun. And at one point, my father had said to me several times, you're not going to want to be doing asphalt work when you're 40, which means you're out in the sun. And when the people that I knew that were in their 40s or 50s, they looked like lizards. Their entire face you had lots of sun damage and you're spending all this time over hot, wet asphalt is not good for you. And the law firm, the people that did it, it wasn't healthy. It's cancer causing and all sorts of problems. So one day it was funny. This is just to give you an understanding of why things you may enjoy or not always the best things for you. I was buying some asphalt sealer from the son of the owner of this factory. And I asked the son, I said, he recently graduated from the University of Michigan. He was taking over running the factory. And he was very clean cut, like a banker. He was very numbers oriented, and you could tell. And he seemed amused by the people that he was selling his product to, as if he also himself, a little disappointed himself for working in an asphalt sealer factory. And he looked like the son of parents who'd shielded them from the reality of this type of work and started this factory. And I asked him if the stuff causes cancer. And I was joking. I just thought of it. And he looked at me and he said very seriously, not immediately. So I was like, wow, this guy's even telling me this causes cancer. And this is a long time ago. This is 1990s or whatever, but this is how it was. And so I definitely picked the right career path, not doing what I should have done. So I'm going to tell you how I was able to get enthusiastic about practicing law. And I'm telling you this because I made a career decision to do what I did. And decided that I wasn't going to do this asphalt stuff for the rest of my career. And in order to do this and to get enthusiastic about practicing law, I started literally reading everything I could about being an attorney. I knew that if I just played by the rules and just went to school and so forth, that I would easily be overtaken by people with bigger goals and more motivation, and that I would just be pretty much blown out of the water. And I knew that. So I started reading and again, this is something that I'm saying to you right now that you need to do. You need to start getting yourself enthusiastic. And you may not like practicing law. You may think that this is all negative. You may think that you've lost too much, you're beaten down. You may think that you don't have the right pedigree, that you don't have the right job. All these things are things that everyone goes through, but it's how you fix this and how you respond to this that's going to make the difference. And so I started reading everything I could about practicing law. I read books about law firms. I read one of the first books I read was about Finley Cumble, a law firm that collapsed. And these kind of things help me in this day and age. I read books about successful attorneys. I studied these books and learned about what they were talking about inside of law firms and what they did and how they committed to things. I learned all about it. When I decided I wanted to be a litigator, I read a book that's funny by Katie Couric called The Trial Lawyers. Then I read a biography by Gary Spence. And I just kept going into this and reading all I could about what these people that had succeeded, what they had done and what they were getting out of it. And let me tell you something, books are the easiest freaking knowledge you can get. You can buy all the books you want and you can learn how people have become successful. This information is out there. It's free to everyone. It's exactly what people try to do that are successful. You need to find all you can learn about law firms, about successful attorneys, and you need to read books and you need to see what they did and you need to study this because this is your freaking life. Think about this. Like, why would you not want to know what successful people do when you're just basically doing that a profession? You can learn their mistakes. You can learn what they did right, what they did wrong, how they interface with other people, how they chose their practice area. I started reading all these books because I knew if I didn't, I would get cancer and die or look like a lizard by the time I was 40. I knew doing asphalt. I knew that if I didn't understand this, that I would wind up in a job not paying hardly anything, but literally potentially living in a flea bag hotel with a bunch of bums. So I needed to really figure out what I was going to do. And this is something you need to do. I'm serious. You need to pick yourself up and really start studying what makes people successful. And then when I was working in the Justice Department, at the time, it was depressing. The people didn't look enthusiastic that I was working with in my department. They did in other departments, but they didn't where I worked. And I would walk down the street by the Justice Department and there were all these law firms there. There was, there's Paul Hastings and coming in Burling and all these things. And I would literally see attorneys on the street. I could tell they were attorneys. And I would ask them questions about what it's like working all these things because I wanted to learn. I needed to learn about what I wanted to do. I asked the attorneys of the Justice Department about their experiences working in law firms. And when I started learning about this, I got myself excited. I was reading books. I was understanding it. I was talking to people that did it, asking them why they liked it, what made them successful, but if they weren't successful, what made others successful. And I started ignoring messages that were negative about what it was like to work in a law firm. And I made sure I could think positively about it. For several weeks in the summer, I went to New York City and I was with my girlfriend's family, but I met attorneys there and I also asked them questions about what it was like there, what the firms were like. And this is the summer I was working in the Justice Department. And I put on the face of someone who wanted to work there as a summer associate. I saw what the people seemed to be like. I saw what the personalities seemed to be like. They dress and work a little bit differently there than they do in Washington, D.C. It's a different type of thing. I understood how I needed to think and how I needed to portray myself and the way I needed, the way people acted and people in New York, anyway, but I started getting understanding this. And so I made this goal, like I was going to get a job in New York. And even though I'd had a negative experience as a first-year law student, there was no reason that I should be not enthusiastic about working with law firms. I saw no reason to do that. Even though these positions paid less than being a contractor, and the people were definitely not as fun. There was just a different type of environment. And so I needed to be able to sit in one place outside, indoors, and not run around outside. And there were just so many drawbacks. But nevertheless, I started not thinking about those drawbacks. I worked myself up into a frenzy. I sold myself on how badly I wanted this. I just kept thinking about what's positive about it, what these books said, everything that I could possibly imagine. I got myself excited. I went on vacation. I read books. All these things I did, I got myself excited about. I learned when I was interviewing with firms, I learned about the law firms. I read things about how to interview. I tried to seek advice from people that had worked in the summer in big firms in New York at my law school and talked to them of what they did, what it's like, all this sort of stuff. And I completely sold myself on the work. And I made getting a position in these, getting a position in these law firms like a complete priority in New York, a complete 100% priority. And then when the interviews came around, I was ready. I knew how people dressed in New York law firms, how it was different and a little more tied down. I knew how to talk. I knew the psychology. I knew what it was like. I'd studied it. I knew everything, and I was really ready. When I finally interviewed in other cities, I interviewed in New York. I didn't do well because I hadn't pre-sold myself in the same way I had pre-sold myself Anyway, I didn't do well because I hadn't pre-sold myself on what it was like to work in these other cities. I did well in New York interviews, but I certainly didn't do well in my interviews in other cities because of that. For example, I was interviewing with the firm in Washington, D.C. I had no idea where people lived in Washington, D.C. When I knew New York, I knew about all the different neighborhoods and where attorneys live because I'd studied it and I'd talk and I'd ask all sorts of questions. And so I had no, I'm trying to fix something. I had no idea when I was interviewing with firms in Washington, D.C., what it would be like to work in that city. Nothing. I just didn't know anything about what it would be like to work there. So when I was asked by one partner where I wanted to live, if I worked there, I just blurted out Georgetown because it was the only neighborhood that I knew. And they could tell very quickly that I knew nothing about different neighborhoods there and what it was like to work there. And because of that, I did not get positions. I wasn't sold on working in the city, even though I'd lived there one summer. And if someone, asked me about where I wanted to live in New York, I could talk to them about different neighborhoods. I could ask them where they live. I could say, I like that neighborhood, but I like this neighborhood because it's a little bit less expensive and there's younger people there. That's someone that really wants to live in a city that knows about it and knows where they want to work. You can't just show up at a law firm in Pittsburgh if you're from Minnesota and expect to get a job. You should be talking about the fact that you came there earlier. You've gotten a real estate agent. You looked at these places. You like this neighborhood. If you do that, then the law firm in Pittsburgh is going to think, wow, this person is really enthusiastic about potentially working here. They've done all this. And this is what people do. When I counsel candidates, people coming to LA, when I was a younger recruiter, just starting out, I would pick up the candidates at the airport, take them to their hotel, and then say, we're going to spend a Sunday afternoon with me driving you around these different neighborhoods so you can talk about where you'd like to live in the interviews. This is what a good recruiter does. This is what you should be doing. You should, wherever you're interviewing, if you're just interviewing another city, you got to go in there and act like someone that wants to live there that's not going to leave. If you don't do that, that's one extra way to get a job. This is what people do. And when I I prepared well for interviews. I always had lots of information about the people I was interviewing with. I try to know everything I could about the people I was speaking with. I try to imagine, what are they like? What is this person like that this would likely to be like? What is this person likely to be like? How should I talk to this person? How can I connect with each of these people? What is the best way to connect? If I've known people like this in the past, how do I connect with people that look like math nerds? How do I connect with people that look like policy wonks? You have to think about, how are you going to connect with people? How are you going to show them that you like them, that you like people like that? And how are you going to find commonalities? How are you going to do all? This is how successful people think. This is how successful salespeople think. And this is exactly what you need to do if you want to get interviews when you go into, you can get jobs, but you have to do the best you can, because if you don't, this is what other people are doing, by the way. Other people are preparing, and the ones that do well are always succeeding this way. I'm just telling you what you need to do if you're not doing it, which most people don't. So this piece of advice alone could help you. And most attorneys, by the way, don't sell themselves well. When they get to jobs, they don't commit once they're there. They never really know what they want to do. They get into a law firm and they think they might want to do pro bono. They get into a law firm and they think, I want to go in-house. So they're not committed. When I get into a law firm, they think, hey, maybe I'll go do this policy work for a while. And what happens is they just get caught up in the forest and never able to see the trees. And if you're going to be someone that gets the positions you want and stays in them, you need to be someone that have goals. Some of these people that go into large New York law firms, they go in there and they might have 100 people in a class, and one or two of those might make partner, maybe. But the ones that do figure out how to achieve, they know what they need to do. They commit. If they need business, they make the connections. They do everything they can. They keep developing themselves. They get better and better each day. They visualize this goal, and it comes across. They're just basically vibrating at that level when people meet them. They watch how partners act and behave, and they're vibrating at that level. They have goals, and they're going towards them. And most attorneys, this is insane, and this is what people have questions about in webinars. And I'm telling you why this is crazy, because most people that want to work in law firms and make a lot of money, That's what the young attorneys do. They want to make the highest salary. They're disappointed in themselves if they're not making the highest salary. I was speaking to a guy not too long ago. He went to University of Virginia Law School. He started out in a big firm and he worked there for 1 year. And then he decided he was going to go in-house or this public interest organization or something for a year. And then maybe some lobbying organization. I don't know what it was. And then he decided he wanted to come back to practicing law in a law firm after the public interest organization lost funding or something, whatever, something like that. The only job he'd get was as a contract attorney working at some place, and he was from Washington, D.C., and the only job he got was like working in, I don't know, Ohio or something as a contract attorney. Literally, that's the only thing you get. Well, the reason that happened, and I'm not the one that got him a job as a contract attorney, he would call me up and say, this is hard. I'm literally eating peanut butter sandwiches and everything. Well, the only reason this happened to him, he was saying, why would this happen to someone that went to University of Virginia Law School? The only reason it happened to him was because he didn't have any goals. He didn't know what he wanted. So he worked in a law firm and then he decided to take this job in-house. This happens to everyone. Like people think they're okay going in-house or doing something off a law firm path. That immediately sends a message to law firms that you have no goals to be in a law firm. So they don't get hired. You go in-house, most attorneys that go in-house never wind up back in a law firm because they show that they just don't have those goals. Would you hire someone that didn't have a goal working in a law firm if you had plenty of applicants and wasn't committed to it? No, you wouldn't. So think about how law firms are thinking. So if you don't have these goals, if in a legal environment, a law firm, you're pretty much toast. You're just going to it's not going to help you. You're not going to do well. People do not make partner at AmLaw 100 law firms that don't have the goal to do that. People do not make partner at the most competitive law firms that don't make that a goal. People that make partner in these competitive law firms as income partners and things never become equity partner if they don't have goals. This is what happens. If you have goals, you succeed. You don't. So you have to have a very good goal. And making a big salary as a first or fifth year attorney is insane. Like, why is that your goal? Really? Like your goal is not to learn and to develop yourself and to get into a better firm or to get more experience, to learn how to succeed. These aren't your goals, and they should be your goals. And so that's something very few people think about. You need a purpose for what you do. And this purpose needs to be something that motivates you on an ongoing basis. You should do your motivation every single day. People without goals just don't get anywhere. They just meander along. I've looked at so many people that have come in to our company as recruiters, and a lot of them they come in, they tend to do very well but then they decide they want to do something else. And I looked them up and they're just not really much has happened, because if they'd had goals of being a recruiter, they would have done really well, but very few people have that. And I'm just really sick of seeing this, because it's a very easy thing to fix. If you fix being rudderless, then you're going to do well if you have goals. Just because you went to law school and passed the bar exam, it doesn't mean anything, but you can become extraordinarily successful and happy in your career if you know what you want and who you are and you have goals. If you have this, you're going to do 10 times better. So here's what you do to create a statement of purpose. And I'm going to talk a little bit about this. I'll give you some resources as well, but let's talk about the statement of chief aim and purpose. And I'll explain to you what that means as we go through. And I will also, when we go to the Q&A, I will pull up a Word document and go over some stuff with you. So if you're going to be successful in the practice of law, you need a statement of your chief aim of purpose. You should write this down. This could be something as simple as, I'm going to be I am the best privacy attorney in the world. I am the most successful, all these things. Whatever you set your goal as, that's your chief purpose. You should write it down. It has to guide everything you do in your legal career. And it can be redone from time to time, but you need to do it. Again, I'm going to give you some resources right now, but if you haven't done so, you need to read Think and Grow Rich. That's a very good book. You can get it for free on harrisonbarnes.com if you search for it, because it's open. But Many very successful people credit this book with their success. I read it when I was in college. It changed my life. It helped me get into law school. It gave me everything I wanted. And there's a lot of people that I was watching a video not too long ago. It was a very important self-improvement guy. And he said that he's read this book every year for the past 40 or 50 years. And he reads a little bit from it each day. And every day he learns a little bit more. So this is a very powerful book. Now, this book, by the way, teaches the same thing that you're going to learn from things like, different things that talk about, manifesting things. There's all sorts of things like this. And this can really change your career and your life. There are lots of other things that will help you with your goal setting and writing things down. This is an interesting thing that I recently learned about. This is a system called, what's it called? I don't know if you can see it, but 369 journal and 369, where you write down your goal 3 times in the morning, then you write it down 6 times in the afternoon, then you write it down 9 times at night. This is what people do. This is in some kind of Tesla system or something, but the Nikola Tesla. But this is and I don't know why 369. He believes that it's something that the universe opens up or something. And a lot of people portrayed that as work. I once heard, I was at Anthony Robbins seminar, and he just got up and he just was in the stream of consciousness. He said, read it several times. And he said he knows people that read it twice a year and they're twice as successful, and people that read it 3 times a year are 3 times as successful. And all this is teaching, by the way, is just ways of thinking about things and ways of thinking about your life and your career. And it's very powerful advice. This particular book, I think it was, Rockefeller asked someone to spend their life studying this. And this is not a plug for this book. It's a plug of thinking. But these thinkings comes from this type of book. The Secret is another example of something that comes from this. And I'm introducing you all this today. If you're familiar with it, I'm selling you on it some more. And it's interesting, like one of the most famous lines in Think and Grow Rich is, anything the mind of man can conceive and believe can be achieved. And that's true. Anything that you think of that you want to do, if you think about it enough and you have a goal for it, and you write it down, and you don't accept no for an answer, and you continually push through as you're doing things like getting fired from jobs, failing the bar, not going to the law school you want, not getting into the firms you want, not being criticized early on for the quality of your work, getting bad things happening to you, being undermined by people, getting divorced and overcoming or getting involved in substances, anything that, if you have a goal and kind of a North Star, this is something very people have. I've seen people become the best attorney in the country, in their practice area, because that was their goal that they set 10 years ago. This happens when you have very big goals, because no one does. But if you have this, you're much better off. So this author of Think and Grow Rich, Napoleon Hill, he spoke to 16,000 people, and he found that 95% of the people he spoke with had absolutely no chief aim. They were just going along and working on other people's chief aims, but no chief aim in their lives. And he discovered that the people who had these well-defined statements of purpose with specific plans for reaching these purposes tended to be, and almost always were, the most successful. Henry Ford was successful because he had goals. Jeff Bezos was successful because he had goals. Elon Musk, goals. All the people that are successful have goals. People around them don't have goals. Giant companies don't have goals. Tesla became more valuable than most auto companies. It did it in a relatively short period of time. Toyota, General Motors, Ford, all these companies have been around, in some cases, 100 years. And yet they never came up with the idea they'd never had a goal of developing the most awesome electric car. Someone came up with that goal, and look what happens. Come on, this is like some of the most important stuff you can possibly understand. If someone like Elon Musk or Jeff Bezos can achieve what stupendous achievements, and all you want is to become the best in your practice area or best to become a partner in a law firm, it's pretty simple. All you need to do, you do the same thing they did, is you come up with goals. Sears didn't come up with the idea of Amazon. Macy's didn't come up with the idea of Amazon. All these giant companies that were in the space selling things didn't come up with Amazon. Sears for years had a big catalog. I used to see it when I was a kid. They would ship it around and it would have hundreds of pages and you could pick something. It's basically the same thing as Amazon. It's just a book form before computers. They didn't come up with the idea of Amazon. So people that have goals are huge. So this idea, and this is something that Hill also wrote, he said, any definite aim that is deliberately fixed in the mind and held there with determination to realize it finally saturates the entire subconscious mind until it automatically influences the physical action of the body towards the attainment of the purpose. Now, I'm going to leave this up on the screen for a minute, and I'm going to let you know what this is. And what does this mean? This means that people that have definite aims and they're determined to realize it, finally, their whole body is going to almost vibrate at the level that it needs to in order for them to realize this goal. It's going to influence everything. They're going to move right towards it. They're going to be able to attract people that are going to help them. They're going to meet people that will help them. They're going to move towards it without even realizing what's going to happen. People are going to approach them with ideas that are going to help them to understand how it's going to happen. Everything will change. And what happens is, and what Hill believed, is that people that don't have purpose, most people do a lot of different things. They dabble in things and their thoughts and effort just go in all these different directions and they don't have any focus and they don't have power. They're just moving around between different things. And this leads to weakness. So if you're in a law firm, you're thinking, maybe I'll do this practice here. I don't like being a corporate attorney. Maybe I'll try environmental law. Maybe I don't know that I like this firm. There's a couple of people I don't like there. Maybe I'll try another one and see how that is. And this type of focus is not going to help you. It's going to lead to weakness because eventually you're going to be overcome by people that actually have a goal. So this is who wins. People win in law firms and all these different places when they have goals. This is what you should have too. So if you understand, by the way, this statement, so most people do many different things. Their thoughts and efforts go in many different directions. The lack of focus leads not to power, but to indecision and weakness. So if you are dabbling in the practice of law, if you are dabbling in your practice area, if you are dabbling in your practice setting, meaning maybe I'll work in the government, if this doesn't work out, maybe I'll go work in house. That's insane. Because if that's how you think, you have no goal. Now, if your goal is, I'm going to go work for a federal judge, I'm going to be a federal judge. I'm going to work for a federal judge. I'm going to do what I need to put myself into a position where I get the attention of the president and his committee when they're appointing federal judges. I'm going to join all the right committees. I'm going to get involved and I'm going to meet people that have the influence to appoint federal judges. All these things, like this is what people do. If you want to be a federal judge, you figure out exactly what you need to do. You figure out what you need. Maybe you need to be a prosecutor to do it. You figure out what to do to get the attention of the right people, because you're not going to be a federal judge if you're just sitting in a law firm with no particular goal to do that. You have to have a goal. This is what people do to become federal judges. They have goals. They know they put themselves on the right, regardless of what it is. Your goal might be to be the general counsel of the Fortune 100 corporation. You need to figure out how to do that. Whatever your goals are, you have to have a purpose. If you don't have a purpose, you're never going to be the general counsel of a Fortune 100 company. You're never going to be a partner of a Am Law 50 law firm, an equity partner. You're not going to be. Someone else is going to be that wants to do that. They're going to figure out how to do it, but you're not going to be able to do it because you just are sitting around thinking about your freaking salary and worrying about what it says on articles about your firm online, and you're just completely rudderless. And this is what happens. And you're gossiping, you're going on these websites and leaving comments about how crappy your firm is. Then this is what's going to happen to you. You sit around and focus on negativity and not your goal, you're just going to continually flounder in your life. You're going to do this the rest of your life, and that's not going to help you. If you understand what he said, your life and career will change. You can achieve anything you want if you focus your efforts, if you understand what you want, and then you attract the forces to you that are going to help you. But if you don't, your efforts are going to be scattered and you're not going to do well. This is what the majority of people do. This is what 97% of the people do. So if you find yourself sitting around a law firm, thinking about all these other things than practicing law and looking at these other potential careers, and then that's what's going to happen to you. You're just going to flounder from one thing to another. I see some of the most insane stuff all the time. I see people that are 10 years in deciding they want to do another practice area. And no, you can, but if that's always been your goal and you set that up, you can do it. But You need to be focused. And this is the only thing, by the way, when I review candidates to work for jobs to be seen to represent them, all I care about is the person being focused on a practice area. That's good. If they're not, that's bad in a practice setting, law firm. But that's all you need to do. If you're focused on a practice area and a practice setting, and then you will do well. But if you're not, then you're unfocused. According to Hill, to reach your goal, you need to have a burning desire, meaning you really want this thing. You've got yourself pumped up. You're doing the stuff that I did when I was reading all these books about being a lawyer and so forth, and understanding the kind of person I need to be. You need to have a burning desire. You need to have a purpose. Your purpose needs to be to do this and to practice law, to be whatever, the best of whatever you're doing, or a partner or whatever. You need to really have a purpose, and you need to take the appropriate action to reach your goal, meaning you can't just sit around. You need to start doing what people do that achieve that goal. Example I gave you, the federal district judge. All these things are very important. If you want to be a CEO of a general counsel of a Fortune 100 company, I don't care what it is. You have to watch the people that do that. Are they generally partners in big law firms before they get that job? How do they get that job? What do they do? How can I talk to people that are doing that and see how they got there? What can I learn? When you need to understand the actions you need to take to reach the goal, it's not enough to say, I want to do this. You need to study what people are doing to reach that goal. This is what people do, by the way, they're successful. This is what attorneys do that become successful. They may not always do this according to this formula with being taught it, but this is what they're doing. So if you want to be successful, you need to understand this. It's very important. And then you need to do all these to achieve success in whatever you're doing. I don't care what it is. You may want to, you may want to do something like climb a mountain, or you may want to run a marathon. I don't know, but these are the things you need to do if you're going to succeed. So burning desire if you're going to succeed as an attorney or job search. This is the first one. So I'm going to go through these because they're very important. And all these things, by the way, will change your career and your life if you understand them. You need to work yourself up to know what it is you want. You need to learn everything you can about whatever you want to do and what is good for your skills and abilities. If you want to be a partner in a law firm, you need to go and talk to other partners there and ask them how they did it and how they got there, and what are your suggestions? What are the most important things to do? How did you do it? What did you do differently than other people? What makes people not succeed? How does it work? And you need to believe and commit to what you're doing. You need to learn and get worked up. You need to get excited. You're never going to achieve anything if you just think, oh, I'm just this working stiff in a law firm. I'm just doing this for a few years. Oh, the hours are bad. No, you're never going to achieve anything like that. And then you need to understand what's good for you and where your skills are most likely to be valued and in what practice setting. I'm not saying that you need to work in a law firm. You can work wherever you want. Your goal could be to start largest chain of grocery stores in the United States. It doesn't matter. Attorneys can have goals about doing things like this. I once was a pizza company that Shakey's Pizza or something, where these guys failed the bar a bunch of times. And so the goal became start the largest pizza chain in California. And it worked. If you believe in something and want it, your odds of getting there are good, because most people don't believe in something and want it. Most people aren't sitting around learning about what it takes to be successful. And I come across attorneys all the time. It's very rare. With 100 attorneys, this is very rare. But they're very enthusiastic about practicing law. They love it. They're very enthusiastic about their practice area, and they want it. And there's just too many examples to list, but not having this desire is extremely important. It opens doors to some force of the universe I don't understand. I've known attorneys that have guaranteed salaries of over $7 or $8 million a year inside of law firms, guarantees, because they bring in so much business and always so focused on their goal. This is what you can achieve. You want to make close to $10 million a year in a big law firm, you can do it. You absolutely can do it. But you need to get enthusiastic about it. You need to be focused, and you need to know how to do it. You need to watch what other people are doing. And then you need to do it even better. And this just opens doors to anything. So a few years ago, I was working with a woman that was clerking for a bankruptcy job in a small mountain state. I don't remember which one it was Wyoming or something. When I say small, I mean populated. And she'd never worked for a law firm. She went to a top 100 law school, and I don't know, she had a B minus or something, nothing that extreme. And she was a good candidate, but she's definitely wasn't the type of candidate that I could ever imagine getting a job in New York City in a law firm, in their bankruptcy firm. I just didn't think it was possible. I was like, how in the world is this woman going to get this job? And that's what she said she wanted. And at the time she wanted this job, the economy was doing very well. There had hardly been any bankruptcy jobs in New York in a long time. There just wasn't the demand. There were enough people for the work that was there. This woman had not even taken the New York bar exam. I don't even know if she had a bar exam. And a lot of people clerk and don't take the bar. And regardless, she was all over working as a bankruptcy attorney in a major New York law firm. She said she wasn't interested in applying to firms in other parts of the country because this was the only place she wanted to work. She didn't listen to my logic. Now, working in a big law firm in New York City in their bankruptcy department, when there's no jobs and when you don't have very good qualifications or even the bar, sounds insane. How does this happen? What does this person think? Why would this even happen? But she'd worked herself up into this frenzy. She told me that that's what she was going to do. Would I help her or not? She knew some people for college that had gone to better law schools than she did. And she spent hours and all the time she could speaking with them and wanted to be like them. She'd investigated the market. She knew all the firms that did the work. She knew their pluses and minuses. And she knew all this stuff about all the firms. She was completely into it. And I don't know how to just completely sold on the idea and believed that she could achieve it. She'd seen attorneys from New York come into her courtroom with bankruptcies in this small state. And decided she wanted to be like them. And before she contacted me, she spent weeks investigating all the recruiters that did New York work and the ones she thought would work the hardest and open the most doors for her. So she decided she wanted to use a recruiter, even though she'd never worked in a law firm, and she wanted help and people to open doors for her. And then she took every possible action she could to position herself for success. And before she even worked with me, she emailed me and contacted me several times asking me to personally represent her, meaning she wanted me personally to help her. So I was okay. And because she wanted success so badly, reluctantly, I decided to represent her and give her everything I had. And again, when I say reluctantly, the fact that I didn't believe in this as much as she did, I wrote letters to the firms explaining her singular passion for the New York market. I let firms know that didn't have any openings, that I realized that she was seeking seemed impossible, but that she really wanted it. And I asked them, even though she had no law firm experience, I thought that she would do very well because she was so committed. But I doubted all this would happen because there were no openings. And large firms in New York are just incredibly selective. They can hire from Ivy League schools. They can hire from people that are already in New York. They can do whatever they want. And they have all these people to choose from. But I gave it my all in, did it my best. Now I did this for her, but she really got me to do it for her. And ultimately, she didn't get a job at a major law firm in New York through me. She got one on her own. And she got it on her own because she had a friend there. So I don't know, whatever, but she hadn't applied through me. But from the moment she did her phone screen until she showed up at the interview with the firm that gave her first offer, she was on. The law firm, she sold herself so well and was so enthusiastic about it that the law firm had no choice but to hire her. If someone really wants something, why wouldn't you? Just anybody show up? If somebody showed up at your house and for some advertisement, you had to, you have a nanny and they're just completely into it. They would do all this. They would do this. It would be the best hire you ever had. All these sorts of things. This is what this woman did. She wanted the job and it showed. And I had a small part in getting her in the door. Remember that. But it was her commitment to an amazing job. And she's still at the job years later. She wants success so much. I spoke to her that she goes to networking events consistently. She's on the Young Lawyers, this, the bankruptcy, that. She meets lots of people. She's already bringing in business and becoming a top New York bankruptcy attorney. She got into a good firm, not one of the 50 best law firms, but a very good law firm. And I spoke to her. She told me she was going to work at one of these law firms would probably be like in the top 10 firms in New York in terms of prestige level. This transformation is incredible. How could someone that went to a top 100 law school, think something like University of Montana, I don't know what it was, how can they possibly be sitting there at a clerkship in Wyoming with not having taken the bar and wind up in a big law firm in New York City? There's no openings? Are you crazy? How in the world does this happen? This is what happens to people that are committed. this is what happens. I don't know what it is. I don't know how people are able to get themselves so fired up. But when they do that, the whole world opens up to them. I've seen this time and time again where people reach these heights of achievement that you would not even imagine, but they just have thrown themselves so far into this freaking goal that it just happens. They meet the right people. They become obsessed with it. People pick up on it. They sell themselves. They go in. This is what happens. It's what happens. And I'm telling you right now that if you really want something, you can actually get it. So you need to think about what that thing is. You need to think about it in every direction. You need to saturate your mind with the idea, and it will happen. So you have to have a passion for whatever you want to do. I know one very successful litigator that became an incredible writer, wrote these briefs and became sought out for writing. Stuff always won, that kind of thing, or most of the time. And he developed a passion for this because his father, he believed, was always discriminated against as a immigrant and held back because of his language and ability. So he said, that's not going to happen to me. I'm going to show my dad what I can do. And so many people develop an interest in the practice of law in different practice settings because of things that happened to them or their parents in the past or role models they may have known when they were young and others inspired them. Sometimes people get in the practice of law because they feel like for whatever reason bad things have happened to them. Maybe they got beat up when they were young. Maybe they had lots of failures. Maybe who knows? But people many times get into the practice of law for different reasons. I know one attorney whose father was in jail for several weeks. The father lost all of his money for committing trademark infringement and then ignoring a court order and a trial against him to take down these trademarks. And so the father had a huge legal judgment against him, which for someone that wasn't wealthy to begin with was an incredible amount of money. It was $15 million against him, and he was basically forced to live off the grid. He lost his house, his business, his cars, everything. And his entire family and his daughter was devastated, meaning they lost their whole self-identity. They lived in a nice neighborhood that had nice schools, and all of a sudden, all that was gone. And this woman decided she was going to help her family recover. She got into college and she worked as hard as she could because she was going to help her family. That was her only goal, by the way. Her goal was like, I'm going to do well because I want to help my family and I want to help my dad. I want to get my family's pride back and all this sort of stuff. I want to reestablish my family. And she did incredibly well in college, just knowing that if she did well, she was going to be able to help her family. Then she did the same thing, did very well in law school. I want to help my family. She got a job as a trademark attorney at one of the top law firms in the country and did that even though she didn't go to the type of law school you would expect that to happen with. She got the best law school she could, but she didn't go to the best law school there was. But she still managed to get a job at a really good firm because she knew she had to do that. And she ultimately, and I'm too far into this, I helped her because I knew anyway, but she ultimately ended up getting the judgment cleared, meaning they agreed for a much lesser amount to settle it. And her family recovered, meaning they finally got rid of this thing hanging over their head. And she did it by basically going to law school and keeping that goal in mind. And then the second I met her, she told me about this goal and no one had been able to help her. And I knew a way to do it. And that happened. So all of a sudden that happened. So you need to develop a passion for practicing law. You need to develop a passion for your practice setting. And you need to develop a passion for your practice area. And if you don't do this, nothing's going to happen to you. Your efforts are going to be scattered. You'll never get to where you want to go. You'll wonder yourself, why aren't I successful? What happened? What's happened? Oh, there was a bad law firm. Oh, my boss didn't like me. Oh, the market's slow. All these things. Let me tell you something, by the way. The market is never slow for people that have a passion for something because everyone wants them to do work for them. Everybody wants people that have passion. Everybody wants people that are, if you have passion for it, your work's going to be better. You're going to be focused in your practice area. People that you work with are going to be amazed. Partners will give you lots of work. All this stuff will happen if you have a passion, but if you don't, you're never going to get anywhere. And people pick up on our energy. If you meet someone that really wants something or is really enthusiastic about a practice area, if you meet a doctor that's completely fired up, people are going to pick up on that. And people even far away will pick up on it. You think I'm passionate about legal recruiting and legal placement? Of course I am. This is all I think about. It's this. If you have this energy and enthusiasm, it's going to be contagious. And people that are very successful have a very highly developed energy that by focusing on something. And one woman I hired, I remember years ago, I hired still an exceptional recruiter. She had lived next to a recruiter years ago, and she was an attorney. And the woman worked for a competing recruiting firm. And this woman I hired didn't have the type of pedigree that you normally would think someone like that would have. She didn't go to a top law school. She didn't ever work at a big law firm. And she definitely didn't have the sort of qualifications the people I usually hire or that the other recruiter firm hired at that time either. And she'd never worked in a law firm, but she noticed her neighbor seemed to be very happy at her job and was doing well financially. And so when she applied to work with a woman and asked her about the job, the woman received the cold shoulder and was told she was never qualified. And she was angry about it and vowed to herself that she would prove the woman wrong. So this woman finally had worked with a woman, and she didn't get the job and vowed that she would prove this woman wrong. And so she called me on the phone. She started leaving messages. The funny thing was she actually said, I'm from the U.S. Attorney's Office in Las Vegas, and I really need to talk to you. This is a personal call in nature. And I was like, what the hell? Someone from the U.S. Attorney's Office is calling me. And so I talked to her on the phone, and then I said, if you want, I'll come out and talk to you. And she then flew herself out to interview me from Las Vegas on a Saturday morning. And I showed up at the office. I never will forget it. I was wearing shorts and a t-shirt. It was because it was Saturday. And I think I'd been out the night before or something. I wasn't in great shape. And anyway, it's a long story. But then I showed up at the office 15 minutes early, and she was already there. Like, she was there, and she was dressed like she would for a major interview. And she asked all the right questions. And then immediately she sold me in hiring her. And when she started, she did exceptionally well at the position. And in her second year, she was the top performing person in our firm. It was incredible. Like, I'd never seen anybody hardly do so well. And by the way, she changing and became very well and did very well. She wanted this. Like, it was her focus. She wanted it more than anything. And when you want something, the universe opens up to you and people pick up on it. So if you want to be a famous attorney, like partners, associates, and others are going to pick up on it. Others are going to pick up on it. I know people that had this desire in law school. I'll never forget them. Some of them one of them's the head of a 1,500 attorney law firm right now. I wanted it back then, talked about it. I never knew it. I knew in college a woman whose goal was, from a freshman, was to be a federal judge, like I told you earlier. Like, what the heck? Like, people have these goals and they set on them, and the woman became a federal judge. How does it even happen? So you need a definite chief aim and purpose in your life. And by the way, we're almost done with this webinar, so I know this has been a long one, but I think it's very important. But you need a very definite chief aim. And your name is really just a clearly defined sense of purpose, meaning you have to want something. And this will guide your subconscious mind, and it will guide your thinking. It's going to help you believe positive things instead of negative things. Let's talk about that a moment. Are your thoughts negative? Are you surrounded by negative people? Are you thinking negative things? Are you picking up things from negative people? Are you watching and reading negative things? I remember, and I've told the story a lot, I remember there was a big law firm, a very prestigious law firm, like actually more than prestigious, like one of the top 5 probably law firms in the country. And this guy was like talking to this partner, and they were like, oh, we monitor all the web traffic of people, all of our partners and associates and everything. And he said, none of these, we see a lot of people going on like sites like Above the Law. And he said, no one that's ever spent time on Above the Law has ever made partner here. So why is that? It's not that I have anything against that publication. It's just, there's always been things like that. There's been greedy associates and things in the past. That wasn't there. But the point is that if you surround yourself with negative information, you're going to think negative things about your firm. You're going to think negative things about your peers, and that's just going to hurt you. Why would you want to surround yourself with negative thoughts? It doesn't do you any good. You need to think positive instead of negative things. So, and again, this is incredibly important. Do you think about negative things, or you just think about your goals? What do you do? I tell this example a few times, and I've told it in a lot of calls before. But when I was first started as a recruiter, I started hiring all these people. I hired people that I'd hired 2 of my first hires. One had been at her law firm for 8 years. Another one had been at her last job for 15 years. And then I hired a bunch of people that had been at jobs for 1 or 2 years. They were candidates of mine that had been fired or whatever, and having problems. I thought I would help them. The point is that the woman that was at her first firm for her last job for 8 years ended up staying with us 8 or 10 years. The woman that was at her last job for 15 years or 16 years, whatever it was, ended up staying with us the same amount of time. So people that have aims and goals, they don't surround themselves with negative information, negative people. That's what they figure it out, and they commit, and that's how it works. Other people don't. And Bruce Lee, the famous karate guy, he had a definite chief aim. He wrote it out. He read Think and Grow Rich. He was a nobody, but he wanted to become the highest paid Asian actor in January 1969. He wrote something down. And again, this is just some random guy that decides he wants to become the highest paid actor. This is the power of doing this. So he wrote down, this is an example. You can learn about this and Think Grow Rich or other thing. He wrote, I, Bruce Lee, will be the highest paid Oriental superstar of the United States. In return, I will give the most exciting performances and render the best quality in the actor's capacity. Starting in 1970, I will achieve world fame. And from then onward, till the end of 1980, I'll have in my possession $10 million. I will live the way I please and achieve inner harmony and happiness. Now think about this goal. This is just something that some guy decided he was going to do. There was no how $10 million in 1970 is probably like $100 million now or 50, I don't know. But this is an incredible goal. It's something that, how could somebody possibly do this? Setting in 1969 and starting from 1970, how could it possibly happen? And it happened exactly like he wanted it to. Hill believes that if you want something, you commit it to writing and you write it down. So you should write down whatever the heck it is you want in your career. You need to write it down. You need to do this sooner rather than later. And Lee wanted to make money. And based on he asked himself some questions. Now, these questions are not something that you necessarily need to remember. You may want to write them down right now. It will help you. But his statement was he asked himself how much money. He had a definite aim. He knew exactly what he wanted. He gave himself a certain amount of time to achieve it. So you need to have a time. Then he came up with a plan. How is he going to do it? So you may say to yourself, by this date, I will be making this amount of money per year, and I will do it within 5 years, and I will achieve it. And I will achieve it by being the best possible attorney in my practice here. I'll tell you a personal story. So I was practicing law in I just left one firm and had gone to another firm. So I think I was at Quinn Emanuel, and then I'd gone over, had the week off before I was going to another firm, Dewey Ballantyne. And I listened to some tapes by Tony Robbins. I read this book, and I wrote down to myself, I decided I would achieve this goal within 5 years. I wrote something down that within 5 years, or whatever the date, I will be making at least $1 million a year, providing the best quality of services to the legal profession, and something along those lines. This is what I wrote down. I didn't say practicing law. I wrote the best quality of service to the legal profession. Fast forward 5 years, I didn't stay very long in a law firm. I guess my subconscious mind realizes that wasn't going to happen in 5 years. I started this recruiting firm, and I still look back on it and I'm amazed. Within 3 years, I was definitely making that much money with the company. In fact, I bought a floor of a building for $5.5 million, which required, I don't know, $1 million down or something. All this stuff just happened. I could never have imagined it. I had like over 100 employees at the time. Business was expanding. And not only was I making over $1 million a year, everything was just completely out of control and growing. I don't know how that happened. I had all these people that wanted to work for me. I don't know how that happened. I had all this people wanting the services of the company. I don't know how that happened. What I do know is that I wrote down a name and it happened. That's what happened. And it happened even more than I could have imagined. I was imagining when I wrote down this goal that I would work in this law firm, give it my all, and hopefully within 5 years, I'd be a partner and make all this money. That was what I thought. But what I wrote was to help the legal profession. I didn't put down as working in a big law firm. I would help in the legal profession. I thought that was the same thing. So I read it and I read it and I read it and I looked at it every day. And that's what happened. My mind said, you're not going to do it this way. You're going to do it this way. And so that's what happened. Your goal might be to be the most famous class action attorney in the United States. If this is your chief aim, that's great. You will probably achieve it. You may write it down and you'll, in your mind and subconscious, will take over and make things happen just like it did to me. So it'd be great if this was your definite chief aim. But very few attorneys have the same. And even those who've been practicing for decades don't have aims like that. So no one does. You need a purpose, though, and a desire to do something specific. And it doesn't have to be about money. But I'm telling you, if your goal is to be the most famous class action, maybe it's famous or maybe the richest, or it could be anything, that goal is meaningful. It's going to, something will happen to you. You need a purpose, though, and a desire to do something. I was talking to, this is crazy. I was on a call with these people from this business group I'm part of. It's called, it's not important. It's, and I was on this call with, I'm on a board, and I was on this call with 5 or 6 people on this board, and we're doing this call. And this guy was driving to Palm Springs from Los Angeles and realized this is a guy whose aim was to be the best type of attorney in this practice area and type of personal injury, helping people with, I don't know, this type of issue or something. That was his goal. And he's literally driving to Palm Springs. He's driving there and he realizes it can take 3.5 hours. So he says, all right, I'm going to turn around and in 15 minutes, I can be at the airport and I'm going to call a pilot standing by there and he's going to fly me to Palm Springs in his jet, and my jet. Wow. So the guy's literally on this call. He's doing FaceTime and he gets off and you see him walking onto the tarmac and they're firing up. He's got someone there. You can hire pilots for like a couple $100 an hour to fly your planes. He walks onto his plane and he takes off and then he's loose. This is crazy, but people have these definite chief aims. And that particular guy, I think, went to Southwestern Law School in LA, went to Cal State something, but had a name. This is what happens when you have aims, just like myself. Who would have thought that I write down these goals in 1998 or 1999, and instead of within 5 years being at some law firm making $1 million a year, I'm like in this position where I'm like, I have 100 people working for me. I'm buying this incredible office space. I'm living in this house. And wow, like, Jesus, sorry. This is the power of this stuff. I'm just telling you, I could never freaking imagine, never. Someone like Tony Robbins living in the basement of his friend's house because he couldn't afford anything. And he starts writing on poster board. This is a guy that, dropped out of college, didn't go to college, that grew up in a family with his father's an alcoholic, and just all these things had a problem, hormone that made him grow too fast or pitch with all these problems, but basically decided he was going to come up with a goal to transmit energy to help people with the force of God or something. I don't know what it was, but wrote all these down on poster board. And all of a sudden this guy's like just completely world famous. This is same thing happened to me. Write something down. You achieve it. You could ask yourself these questions like, what do I want to become? You could say, I want to be the most famous class action attorney in the United States, or I want to be the class action attorney that makes the most money. I don't care. But you write that down. How much time do you want to do it? You may say 5 years. You give yourself the time to do it, just like I gave myself 5 years. What the hell? How does this even happen? And then he says, what plan or service do you want to do to acquire it? Then you say, by branding myself publicly as the best class action defense attorney in the country, I'm committed to this practice area, bringing the most significant cases and aligning myself with the people who will support my goals and win all my cases. Most people that want to be a famous class action attorney would like to do it. They don't figure out how to meet the right people. They don't figure out how to find the right types of cases. They don't figure any of this out. I was talking to a guy that was a partner at a major law firm and retired at like the age of 45 or 46. And this is recently. And I've known this person for 20 plus years and came to me and said, do you have any of these types of attorneys? Because I want to start my own law firm. This is after the guy had been retired for 5 or 6 years. And I said, yeah, of course I do. And he said, can you send me their resumes? I said, no, I can't, but I can talk to you about the types of people you have. And then the guy said, how soon could they start? And do you have people that I could put on my website and not really pay? And I was like, no. And And I said, what do you want this firm to do? And he said he wanted to bring this certain type of case, but there's no motivation. There's just this thing that thinking about starting a firm, do these type of cases. And then I'd be like, what are you working on now? There's nothing related to these type of cases. So no, I didn't help the person. How could I help the person? They didn't even have a job. But not only that, but they didn't even have financing or anything, these type of cases. You have to, create a chief aim document. And I cannot emphasize this enough. You can learn this formula in Think and Grow Rich. It's other places. It's in The Secret and all these type of other books. It works. I'm not a energy healer or whatever. This is not, this is just something that Rockefeller and Henry Ford and all these people do. So if you have a chief aim, you will do it. So you can say, your name will be the most sought out and famous class action defense attorney or plaintiff's attorney, whatever you want to be in the United States. In return, I will brand myself as the best class action attorney in the country, committing to this practice here, being the most significant cases, aligning myself with the people who support my goals, and I will win all my cases. I will take the actions needed to be known far and wide and sought out by clients, and I'll achieve this within 5 years. Sounds crazy, right? But this is the kind of stuff people do. Have you ever seen young people burst onto the scene? People that are like in their 20s and all of a sudden they're the most famous and something that people do their entire careers and never reach. This is how they do it. They know what they want to do. You sign and date this, you read it each morning, and then you can read it before you go to bed. You have to read things over and over again like this. You have to think about things at least twice a day. So that's just something I bought for fun. I told 369 journal. It's not something that you need to buy. It's just this method. You can read about it. But on this journal, it says, here's what it says. It says, you write down this goal in the morning 3 times. Then you write it down in the afternoon 6 times. Then you write it down in the evening 6 times. And then you just write down your actions for the day. They're going to take you closer to those goals. And you just keep repeating that goal over and over again. And like myself, who's sitting there in a job in a law firm making $100,000 a year, all of a sudden, within 5 years, there's this company that's doing like over $10 million a year in revenue. Who the hell would have thought that? That's crazy. Like what? And when I went into legal recruiting, I didn't even know anything about it. I talked to a bunch of recruiters. I talked to law firms but I didn't know anything about it. Nothing. I didn't go to work in another recruiting firm. I just had a goal and I wrote it down and I did everything I could and visualized it, enthusiasm. People that spoke to me, potentially working for me, picked up on that and wanted to work for me. All these things happened. The method of setting goals is that it works. And everyone that I know that's ever followed this method has got what they wanted. I've talked to people that I told this about a long time ago and they followed and great things happened to them. But some people said they followed and it didn't work, but they only did it like once or twice and then they didn't. But this works. This stuff works. So this final slide here, the final few slides is talking about what action you're going to take to reach this purpose. And this is the third part of the formula. And I just tell you right now that listening to this stuff, if you listen and you've taken notes and you're thinking about, this is the first step to you becoming great at whatever it is you want to do in your career. The third part of this formula is that if you're going to be a famous class action attorney, you need to think about what actions you're going to take to do this. What are you going to do today? What have you done this week? Who's going to benefit from it? How will they benefit? What is your plan? You have to have something written down where you think about what you're going to do and know that. And very important. Wrapping this up is, and this Mary Lou Retton won the all-around gold medal in Olympics. And a reporter asked her, how does it feel to be the first perfect 10 for the Olympic team? And she said, like it always felt. And this is very interesting. Like it always felt. And this person said, but it's never been done before. How's it even possible? And she said, I've done it thousands of times in my mind. I've done it thousands of times, meaning she just kept thinking about this over and over again. She wrote it down. She focused on it. That's what she wanted to do. She said, I'm going to be the first perfect 10 on an Olympics team, something like that. I'm going to be that. I'm going to be that. I'm going to do it. 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 And just confidence and belief that comes from this. I'm going to be a partner in the largest law firm in the country. I'm going to have more business than any other attorney in my state, in the country. I'm going to be best known for this. I'm going to be best known for this. This is something that very few people do. But if you meet someone that has these kind of goals, you're going to achieve something. This sort of stuff, if you want to achieve, anything of significance in your career and get somewhere, you need to know where you're going and you need to know how to get anywhere until you do. And you're not going to get anywhere in your job search if you're not doing this stuff. Now, I want to make a couple points to you that are important. First of all, if you're listening to this, and I see that there's, hundreds of people watching this, and then you've really come far, because very few people will listen to this type of knowledge. Some people will get uncomfortable with it and avoid it. Other people will not, they won't do the things I'm talking about. Other people, one of the things that I've attempted to do my entire career is to provide a lot of information for people. So you can go and read about what successful attorneys do. You can read about all the stuff. You can immerse yourself in it. You can go all out, because I'm going all out, and you can learn the stuff and become better. But this particular thing that you're watching today is something that is a different type of knowledge. As a matter of fact, when I heard I was going to do this webinar, because people in my staff pick out the topics for me, I was a little annoyed. I was like, this is not technical and that kind of stuff. But the more I think about it, and this is probably the difference between you achieving anything in your career and not. So you can learn all the technical stuff that I teach about resumes and cover letters and interviewing. But if you don't have this, if you have this stuff, you're going to be so freaking far ahead of anyone else in the legal profession and that you're competing with, and you're going to choose your practice area, and your wildest dreams will come true. Meaning you will be the best you possibly can be. You will overtake anyone, no matter what your qualifications are. If you commit to something, you will become the most freaking successful attorney in your practice area, in your city, in your state, in the country. You can do pretty much anything you want, and you can achieve it, but you need to focus on it. You need to learn about it. You need to do all the things I'm talking about. You need to meet the right people. You need to inundate your mind with this stuff. And you really, if you can do this, you can do anything you want. You can become 10 times more successful than I ever was. The only times that I've not been successful, and I've certainly had my ups and downs, is when I lost sight of my goal. I just decided, hey, I'm going to go into this other business. Maybe I could do student loans. That would be cool. Maybe I could start a company doing job search for people in other professions, when this is my focus and should always be. And you need to have a focus too. My focus is to be the best person in the world doing law firm placement. That's it. I don't have a goal of doing anything else. And why would I? My goal be to do in-house and law firm placement? No, because the more I learn about law firms, the better I do. Should my goal be to take a trip to Fiji next year, or go to Miami for 2 weeks? And these are not normal goals. Like, you have to have goals that are related to you becoming something extraordinary. And again, it doesn't matter who you are. It doesn't matter how all this ups and downs you've had. It doesn't matter. None of that stuff matters. All that matters is you have this goal, because that goal will be like steel, and it will be something, or like carbon. It will cut through every single piece of competition out there. It will make you rise. It will make you be the best possible person you can be. And if you don't do this stuff, you're not benefiting yourself. Someone else will do it. So why not you? And by the way, if you've taken the time to watch this webinar live, and it's taken a while to talk about, like, you are the sort of person that's going to be able to do this. Like, absolutely. Like, people that can't do this stuff will drop off. They will not ask questions. They will get uncomfortable. They will, all these sorts of things. And so watching this is really one of the best things you can do for your career, because this is changing everything. It can change your life. It can change your family's life. It can change how you're perceived by people after you die, and people after your children die. This is huge. I have relatives that were successful in the 1800s, and people are still talking about them, and the family still talks about them and visits their statue in the White House or in the Capitol Dome, and everyone talks about them. And the person's freaking been dead over 100 years. So you have successful people in your family, you become successful and you do some great stuff. Like, you're going to create a legacy where you're going to be remembered, and your message is going to go for generations, and it's huge. So that's what you need to do. You need to really wrap yourself around a goal. And if you do this, everything's going to change. Your entire life will be changed. Imagine I'm sitting there practicing law and taking some time off before joining another firm, and have this goal to make this much money, providing legal services, not working a law, I'm providing services. And look what happened to me. And I'm nothing special. There's just someone with a goal. And that's what people do. People that don't go to the best law schools, people that do go to the best law schools and succeed. They have goals and they're focused on it. Just to talk about real briefly getting a job, it's very simple. Employers want to hire people committed and have a direction. They will pick up on it. You will walk into interviews and you will get jobs because there are people that walk into interviews and are so freaking good at this, they get every single job they ever interview. Doesn't matter, every job, because they come in and they know how to do this. And once you walk into a firm and do this, you'll have a sense of commitment to your work and you'll know where you want to go. And very few people have commitment. Most people that are interviewing with firms like, this people are going to take advantage of me, the hours, and I'll work there for a few years, or I don't like this very much, or I don't like how the partners, all these sorts of things. And everyone does this and they don't succeed. Watch what happens, by the way, if you're a young attorney and you're watching all these people and they're negative, watch what happens to them in 5-10 years. It's sad, but it does. I watched the people that were like this. They're all negative and I looked them up and it's not good. You need goals, but you need all this sort of stuff. I remember when I started this company 3 or 4 years later, I'm hiring people from my former law firm that went to Stanford and Harvard, Yale, and all these things. Never could have imagined in a million years I would be in that situation, but I had a goal and this stuff matters. That's really all I have on this presentation. I would talk about it forever if I could, because it's that important and it can change your life that much and it can change your career. This is the missing ingredient. The missing ingredient isn't your resume. The missing ingredient isn't your interviewing ability. This is the missing ingredient. And if you have this, everything for you is going to come into place far more than you can even frickin' imagine now. So I'm going to take a quick break just for a minute or two. When I come back, I will take questions. Again, your questions can be about anything. They can be about anything to do with your career, anything to do with your motivation. If you have questions about developing mission statements, I can answer that. But really the question and answers are just for anything related to your career. And typically, I will stay as long as I need to answer questions. So if you have any questions that you've been thinking about related to your career, I'm happy to answer them or whatever you're trying to do. And usually I can get to most of the questions, so I'll answer your questions. And again, it's very important to ask questions. Sometimes and also the questions are anonymous. Any questions that you have, I will answer them and no one's going to know who you are. All right, so let's get started with questions. And again, it's always good to ask any questions that you may not think you know or questions you have. And there's not a lot of questions, which I guess is okay. Hopefully you'll have new questions as I answer them. Sorry, for some reason today, there's a lot of fighting questions of that are a little hostile and that kind of thing, which is okay. I'll share questions and answers. And some of them are political in nature about politicians and that kind of stuff, which is fun. And I'll see if I can answer some of that. Okay, in my recent job search, I found myself struggling to gather relevant information about potential employers. How can I effectively research a company's culture and values before the interview? What specific questions should I ask during the interview to learn more about the job beyond just a compensation package? Okay, one of the things I'm not too excited about with this question, I'll just tell you why. This person's saying that they're trying to gather relevant information about their employers. How can I effectively research a company's culture and values before interview? What specific questions should I ask to learn more about the job beyond the compensation package? Okay, so some of the stuff I spoke about today is the idea of selling yourself on the employer before you even go in. One of the biggest mistakes that I see, like BCG candidates a lot of times, and I don't like this, will get an interview and then won't go in to the firm because they learned something about the firm they don't like. Sometimes people will hear something negative about a firm and won't go in, or they'll read something online, some review, and they won't interview there. So this is something that a lot of people do. They talk themselves out of working someplace before they even go in there. They may talk themselves out of it because of political things. They may talk themselves out of it because someone wrote something negative about the firm on a message board. They may talk themselves out of it because, who knows? People talk themselves out of stuff all the time. And they say, oh, I don't like the culture. I don't like the politics there. I don't like this or that. And that's really something that's going to hurt you. Why your job is to go into a firm and get the job. Your goal is to, even when you get an interview, you should take the interview and do your best to get the job. You can ask questions later. You can find out The compensation's often negotiable, all these things. But how do you gather relevant information? You go to their website and you learn about what they do. And you tell yourself, if you're focused on your practice area, you have a focus about that. And then you go in and you suddenly have all this information about that practice area and what you want to do. And you get yourself fired up and you look at the people doing that sort of work and you get interested in it and you are able to talk about your interest. This is what people do when they're very interested in something. You don't necessarily need to gather relevant information, but you need to find the people that are doing what you do and sell yourself on that goal. And the person asks, why would a law firm use your services when they can screen them themselves? There's a lot of reasons a law firm uses the services of us, a ton of reasons. Certainly that's true. Law firms can screen people themselves, but law firms also need someone to sell them on working at that firm, and they need to find the best person they possibly can. So what law firms do is they have openings. They try to find the best people for them. There are lots of firms, when I say lots, thousands, that can't find people on their own because of their weird market. I was talking to one the other day in Sacramento that's having a hard time. I've talked to firms in Northern California recently, one that was having a hard time finding different types of people. So people all the time will have issues finding people, but really what a law firm's looking to do is find the best person that they can for the job. And for them, they want the best person who looks the best, who's the best possible fit for their job. And that's what they want. So screening a candidate is not just about that. It's about lots of other things. And we have in our company over 600,000 attorneys that have submitted their resume to us, which is a very high number. And that's close to half the attorneys in the United States. So when someone has an opening, we can find people very quickly that could match it. We could try to sell them on it. We email them about it if they look good, and we text them, and if they're in our system, and we can try to find people on our own. So if you're a law firm, and there's firms all over the country and weird Montana and things, or Los Angeles, and we have a hard time finding people. And so we find them, and it works very well. I've been doing this forever, and it's about, you want to do something and we're committed to it, then you do it. Let me see here. And obviously, and this is actually a good question, because I remember, I've been doing this for so long, but I remember, I don't know when it was like 8 or 9 years ago, maybe less than that. There was a woman that had worked in a really good law firm doing just as a patent attorney or something. And she decided to go into this line of work. And when she went into it, she found all the reasons that being a recruiter wouldn't work. She decided that same thing, law firms could find people on their own. They could screen them on their own. She decided that all these different decisions that she'd made in her head. And sure enough, she never made any placements. She might have made one or something, but she just kept telling herself how it wouldn't work, how it didn't work, how the profession didn't work, all these different things. And yet at the same time, we had recruiters making over $500,000 a year making placements. And this is the kind of money you can make if you're good at something. And at the same time I was making, I think the year where she was saying this, I made over $2 million in terms of fees from making placements. So the idea that anyone that you can't succeed at something, and you're finding all the reasons why you can't succeed, and this is what this person did, they just kept talking themselves out of being successful and why it was impossible. This is what people do that aren't going to be successful. People that aren't partners in law firms, who don't reach their goals, surround themselves with negative information and talk themselves out of being successful. And people that are successful figure out how to get it done. That's how it works. Successful attorneys surround themselves with information about this, and unsuccessful attorneys don't. Okay. And this may be what you're doing. Why? Maybe it's not working. Maybe it's hard to get a job. Maybe it doesn't work when you use a recruiter, all these sorts of things. Of course it works. But anyway, I do have a mission statement, and this is my third career and second profession. I'm overqualified for Christ's sake. People are afraid of my caliber of knowledge. I'm not humbled by any stretch of imagination, nor do I suffer fools gladly. So what can you do for me who has 6 degrees and is an expert in IT, IP law? Yeah, there's a lot of, I've never been on one of these calls where there's been so much hostility and anger. I don't know why that is, angry and so forth. But when this person's angry, and a lot of the other questions today are very angry. I've never been on, in all the years I've been doing this, I've never seen people so angry. And this stuff here, not Suffering fools gladly. What else? Overqualified. What else? 6 degrees, expert in IT law. Okay, so I guess all I can say to this person, I think the person's angry, which is okay, and I'm not looking for enemies or anything. I've certainly been angry at various points in my career. I've been misunderstood, and all sorts of things have happened to me that certainly I'm not happy about. But the people hire people and give people work and so forth that they like. You need to be liked. And then we hire people that we like. And if we are liked, if people like us, then they hire us. The other thing I would say is that you have to be, if you want something, you're going to go into it not with a sense of entitlement and not with a sense of knowing everything, but a sense of really wanting to be taught by people and really wanting to learn. The legal profession, it takes usually, before you're even proficient in any practice area, it generally takes people about 5 years. For the first 5 years, as an attorney, you're really learning, and you need to be open to learning, and you can't be like everything. And it's very hard when you're senior and it's a second career, because a lot of times people come into it with the sense that they're, they know everything and they don't want to learn. And so there is a lot of prejudice many times against people that are more senior, because you're essentially going to be taking orders from junior people that you may feel overqualified for. There's another issue that's a little bit interesting about this question. Again, I'm not looking for enemies. I'm just trying to help you, whoever wrote this. Again, please don't take any of this personally, because I'm just telling you based on my knowledge of 25 years of doing this, what I think is important. So people hire people. So the reasons law firms hire people, and this is what I've learned from 25 years of doing this, but the reason law firms hire people, and this is really for everyone on this call to understand, because if you don't understand, if you don't follow these reasons or track with this, then you're never really going to get to where you want to go. So they hire people that can do the job, whatever the practice area is, whatever, can they do it? They hire people that can be managed. Law firms hire people. It's important to be managed, meaning, what does management mean? Management means that you will follow instructions, that you will do what you're told, that you will respect authority, that you will, all these sorts of things. President Biden, do you think he's managed by someone? I don't know. Do you think that the CEO of corporations are managed by someone? Yes, they're managed by the board. Do you think that partners in law firms are managed? Yes, they're managed by people. So everyone has to be managed. Partners in law firms are managed. Associates are managed. So you have to be someone that's managed. If you're not someone that's managed and you can't be managed as part of an organization, then you don't belong in an organization, because everyone needs to be managed. And if you're a senior attorney, it's even more difficult to be managed, because people want to hire people that are going to take instruction and they're going to make them feel good teaching them and so forth. If you watch partners in law firms, they love having young associates fawn all over them and act like they're smart and follow their orders and make them feel respected. And if you don't make people feel so respected and you don't respect them, then they're going to hire someone who does. So a lot of times people just get fired from firms because they're not manageable. They don't make the people they work for feel good. They don't respect them. They gossip about them. They think they're better than them. They think someone's a nerd or whatever. I remember working with someone that was very sensitive and thought they were a nerd. And the last thing in the world you want to do is make them aware that you thought that, because if you did, they would crush you. So you have to be able to manage. And this is, I'm not saying that law firms are perfect. I'm not saying that you're doing anything wrong, but you might be in the wrong environment. You have to be somewhere that you can see yourself as being managed. Very important. If you're not able to be managed, then you're pretty much, you're going to be in big trouble. That's a huge issue. So the other one is stuff like, do you want the job? Will you do the job long-term, and do we like you? Do you want the job interview? And you can tell they want it. They're very enthusiastic. Everything they've done looks like they want it. They connect and they do everything they possibly can. They're fired up, and people can sense that and see it. So you have to look like you want the job. If you walk in the job and think you're smart in the job, no one's going to hire you. If you walk in the job and people are talking about stuff and you know better, you don't make them aware of that. So you have to want the job. Everything I've talked about in this webinar is wanting something. And then will you do the job long-term? If you're giving off signals that you may not want to commit to the job, or you've moved into you've got a lot of different degrees and done all this stuff, then it doesn't look like you're going to do the job long term if you've jumped around between different things. Law firms are businesses. They want to hire people that are going to commit. And the final one is, do we like you? People hire people they like. So you want to be likable. If you're not likable, then and they don't like you, then why would they hire you? You would do the same thing. You would hire people. They're just looking for the best people they can. So people hire people that they like. That's the final things. Who would you hire? Would you hire someone that walked into an interview and were like, oh, I'm going to give you a chance, not the other way around? That seemed like they didn't really want to work for you, and we couldn't, they were commit and you didn't like them. I mean, think about this. So these are very simple. These are just Harrison's rules that I've developed, but I think these are very important for understanding how people interview people. Wow, there's so much hostility in this call today. It's awesome. It's fun that people are so passionate about this stuff. People are just, a lot of people are really upset. Maybe it's the winner. I don't know. Came all the liar and was fired on a hit a certain age. Settled quietly and were conducting a search, which is frustrating. How to combat ageism. So the first thing is that I've placed people incredibly that are in their late 70s that had large books of business and things. And so this is very common that older lawyers are let go. There are some firms that won't let you work, big firms won't let you work till past age 60 or 65. Everybody loses their job. But there are people that are doing searches or get jobs when they're older. And so how do you combat ageism? So sure, there's ageism, but there's also older attorneys that are very successful. So this is what people are asking. They're asking if you can do the job. They're asking if you can be managed. They're asking if you really want the job. They're asking if you're going to commit. Do they like you? All these questions that I talked about earlier are ways that you can combat ageism. People get hired all the time that really want the job. I once hired an attorney in her 70s to work for me. She did great because she really came in and wanted the job. And so all these sorts of things, how do you conduct ageism? And you apply to as many possible places as you can, regardless of your practice area. There's always tons of people that will potentially hire you. So you just need to work on them. You just need to put yourself in a position where you are the best candidate for the job. So that's it. So older people get hired all the time, and it's just not something that you have to worry about if you apply to enough places. The only other thing I would say is that what's discouraging to me is that there are so many opportunities out there for people. There are just an insane number of opportunities, meaning there are so many law firms, there are so many places to work that it just boggles my mind. So say you were a trust and estates attorney, attorneys, and I'll just pick some random area. We talked about Las Vegas. So maybe you're in Las Vegas and you want to work in Las Vegas as a trust and estate attorneys. There's just an incredible number of law firms and things that you potentially could apply to. Now, I would help you do that if you were a trust and estates attorney, but you can do it. You can do all the things. You can always find positions on your own. Then you just go here and you can see, let me just make this a little bit smaller. But you can see there's just an incredible number of trust and estates attorneys you can potentially work for. And I was trying to, I don't know why it's not doing it, but you scroll down, there should be another, you can go page to page, and there's so many opportunities, regardless of what you want to do. You want to be a workers' comp attorney. I'm just saying here, workers' comp, compensation attorneys in Sacramento. There's just any area of the country, in Sacramento, that any area of the country you want to work, there's just all of these potential places that you can, it's just ridiculous. So there's always lots of opportunities, regardless of your practice area. Oh, here's next. So it's one of 20 pages of many. There's a Sacramento, which isn't a big area. It's not a huge area. So you can apply it. You can contact these people, say this Edward Smith law offices. I don't know what's up with this guy, but you could apply to work here. There's just so many places you can possibly work, regardless of your practice area. That it's just ridiculous. I mean, anyone can get a job. You won't get a job if you're just doing normal things like applying to jobs on Indeed or something. Or LinkedIn, you can look at Law Cross or a site that I own that has a bunch of jobs. Or you can look at all these different websites with resources and find things. You can definitely get a job. I mean, anyone can get a job. It's just the question of what are you doing to find the job? Are you finding firms and not just jobs? Because if you don't look like the best candidate for a job, no one's going to hire you. If you're competing against a bunch of other people that are applying for the same job and you're not the best candidate, the only way to really get a job, and I talk about this constantly and I've talked about it my entire career, is to apply to places that probably don't have openings. Those places that don't have openings aren't getting any applications, and therefore you will look like the best candidate for whatever openings that they have. It's very simple. This is a very easy way to find a job. No one does it. The people that do, it works. So my piece of advice would be, you don't worry about ageism. You will do just fine if you apply to places, especially ones without a job. Wow, a lot of people are really fired up on this call. Okay, lot of good questions. This is a good question. Okay, I've always been ambitious about my legal career and have set specific goals, but lately I've been feeling overwhelmed and burned out. Is it possible my drive to achieve these goals has caused more harm than good? How can I determine if I just need to adjust my career objectives to find better satisfaction and balance in my legal profession? Okay, yeah, so you have to have the right goals. There's nothing wrong with adjusting your goals if they're not goals that are making you happy. So the only way to really be happy is to have a goal that you think is going to make you happy. It doesn't have to be anything specific, but you have to go into something that you believe is going to make you happy. So if your goal is, your goal should inspire you. Your goal should not drive you down. Your goal should inspire you, meaning it's something that makes you happy. What makes me happy? I would not be happy being a dentist. That's not where I'm at. I would not be happy being an accountant. It's not where I'm at. It doesn't inspire me. Your goal should inspire you. Your goal should be something that makes you, that you like. If you like writing, your goal could be a best-selling novelist or the best-selling this or that. It's just, you have to have a goal that really is in tune with what you want to do and who you want to be. And that's really what I would say is the most important thing. So if you have that type of goal, then you're going to be much better off. So your goals should align with what you want. So what makes you happy? So there's certain things, everyone has certain drives and interest in things that make them happy. I don't know what that is for you. Some people, your goal might be to be the best homemaker possible and to raise my kids to be successful. Kids that we look at sometimes, kids that become very successful in sports and stuff, their parents were all over it. I don't know what your goals are, but you can have goals about anything, but the goals should make you happy, meaning you like doing something. If you don't like practicing law and you don't think it's at your right goal, and you are more interested in, in business or running a business, or maybe you're interested in starting a clothing line. And people can have all sorts of ambitions that aren't related to practicing law if they don't like it. But your goal at working at something should make you feel good. It shouldn't make you feel badly. For example, I love I like it so much that I have to be pulled away at night by my fiance, because otherwise I'm not going to spend any time with her. And the same thing I would be working, if I didn't have family related obligations, I would start work 6:30 in the morning or 6, and I would work till 9 o'clock at night because I love it. I would work till 9:30 until I got tired. That would be what I would do. And so whatever your goal is, you have to make sure that it's something that you like. It doesn't have to be a legal career. It's something that makes you happy. And if you can't see yourself being happy doing it, then you need to do something else. It's not going to help you. Let me just see here. This is one question that wasn't savage. Let's see. Thank you, Harrison, amazing teacher. I've read Think and Grow Rich with this presentation, especially coming from an attorney, helps give the idea more credence. I do have a personal statement written, and I try to read it from time to time. Okay, that's a good point. From time to time. The question is, how do we reconcile or achieve fame with the legal profession when the written primary goal is not in the legal profession? I just in my statement today to include what I want to be as a lawyer. Okay, so here's what's missing from what you're doing. And let me see if I can find something for you and read it to you, because I think this is important. So let me just see here. I just want to, okay. So there's a couple things in Think and Grow Rich, but that I think are important, but these are in things like The Secret and all that kind of thing. And let me just see if I can find, let me just see here. I'm just looking at something here. This is just an interesting book. I'm just looking at the book, because this kind of stuff, if you really want to do it, you really want to be interested in it. And then you really have to make sure that you're doing whatever you can to achieve that goal. This is just a journal example. I don't know if you can see this from Think and Grow Rich, but that's a journal. No, I'm not saying this is the only way to do it. A lot of people most people that are very successful just pick this up. I remember talking to some guys from Andover or whatever, the school, and they always had a belief in their success and all that. But the idea is what you're doing wrong here is you don't read your personal statement from time to time. If you read Think and Grow Rich, there's a bunch of stuff that's talked about in there that you're supposed to read your chief aim, or you're not supposed to read it once a week or from time to time. You're supposed to read it every day. You're supposed to read in the morning and the night. And then you're supposed to think about for a half hour, like the person you're going to be and visualize it. You have to do all that stuff. And then there's other things like this. This is a self-confidence formula from it, where you're supposed to you're supposed to read that you have the ability to achieve. Then you're supposed to, start thinking about for 30 minutes daily, the person you're going to be. And then you're going to start devoting 10 minutes daily to demanding self-confidence. All this stuff these are all kind of formulas. I don't know why they work, but they work. And so if you're going to do this stuff, you can't do things time to time. You do it every day. You need to saturate your mind with this stuff. You can't just have a goal to be a great attorney, whatever it is, and not expect to do something. And there's all this other stuff. There's some formulas, like this one I was telling you about earlier, it's 3-6-9, or you're supposed to write down your goal 3 times in the morning. Then you're supposed to write it down 6 times in the afternoon. Then you're supposed to write it down 9 times at night. So this is all you have to, if this is what you do, if your goal's not in the legal profession, then that's what it should be. You should do whatever you want. You don't have to be an attorney. That's crazy. Like, you should do whatever you want. I've seen people's goals I knew one guy whose goal was, he was an attorney, was to operate a winery. He did. So you have to figure out how to do these things. And that's very important. And let me just see her. Okay, so let's see this question here. Hi, Harrison. I'm going to say thank you for this presentation. It's amazing you've taken the time to share this knowledge with us. I do believe it will change my life and many others. My specific aim is trying to narrow down what I want because I have ideas and things I would like to accomplish. For example, I would like to become a GC of one of the top international law firms in Canada, which firm has a positive environment and goals of improving the life of others in the world in general. I would also like to be a famous, okay, so here's the different goals. Writing these down. I would also like to be a famous writer focused on simulation theory combined with spirituality and how we can all remember who we are, immortal beings, and why we are here. So do you have any suggestions or thoughts about how to focus? I have an issue committing because I feel this closes off for me other paths that may ultimately be better for me. How can I talk myself and sell myself in one path versus another? Okay, so this is a very good question. So a lot of people have multiple goals. And so these goals take them in different directions, and that's not good. So this particular thing that you're saying is you want to become a GC of an international law firm, and then you want to be a famous writer focused on simulation theory, combined with spirituality. So these are different goals. So someone that is trying to do one thing, it would be very difficult for them to do these two things. Now, you could certainly try that, but you really need to focus on one thing. So the reason of focusing on one thing is because if you do one thing, then it's going to put you in a position where you're going to be able to, all the resources and the people you need and the knowledge you need to gain and all these sorts of things are going to help align you to that. But if you're doing two things, you're basically saying that I want to be able to do both of these things. And I do not think that is really the best type of goal to have. I don't think you can have two major goals at the same time. So you can have career goals or you can have different goals. Now, you can certainly write down different goals for different things, but I'm talking about, there's nothing wrong with that. One of the things that I think is fun to do, and this is just related to goal setting, this thing here, is you can write down goals for health and fitness, for your business and career, for family and friends, for relationships, for personal development, finance, recreation, spirituality. You can write down goals for that stuff. But if you want to be really successful, the best thing you can possibly do is have goals that are going to be related to what you're trying to do with one thing. And I would say that one thing would be one overriding goal. Now you can write down, I do this. I have each month, I go through and I review how I'm doing and with business goals, with family goals, with recreation, health and fitness. So I do a check-in on all these things. That I do check-ins and I see how I'm doing with these things. But for the most part, you need one overriding goal. And then because everything you'll be focused on it and you'll learn how to do those things. And then you'll become, for example, this simulation theory combined with spirituality, that sounds like a pretty good goal. So what you would do is you would study, I don't know what simulation theory is, but you would study everything there was to know about simulation theory. You would, if this was your goal, you would figure out how to meet the people that knew much about it. You would learn everything that they knew about it. Then you would learn as much as you could about spirituality. And then you would do all this stuff and you would become someone that was probably very well known in that. If your goal was to be the leading person about simulation theory and spirituality in the world, that would be a good goal. And so this is very interesting. And one thing I would say too that's interesting is that there are people that are just very spiritual in nature. That's who they are. Like people have different skills. Some people, their skills are all about being spiritual. Maybe that's your skills. You need to go in the direction that helps, that really makes what you are. Are you going to be more fulfilled being a writer, or are you more fulfilled being a GC? And I don't know, but I would think based on everything you're saying, improving the life of others and so forth, I don't know that you can do that as a GC. You might be able to, but I think that this particular goal, everything you're trying to do, sounds more spiritual. So I would think that that would be important. One of the final points is that there's this whole thing, I don't know if it's technical or rich, it might be, but when you have a goal, when someone's going to war and they have 300 people and the enemy has 500 and they land on the shores of someplace, they burn all the ships because they know if they have any way of retreating, they're probably going to. So they want to make sure that they succeed at all costs. They burn the ships. And same thing with your career. You need to have one goal that is completely overriding, that dominates really your thinking. So I've been listening to your webinars for a while and really appreciate your information. I understand from what you have said that you should stay in one practice area. I'm trying to change to another practice area where I have no experience by trying to volunteer for attorneys or nonprofit organizations, but I run into the same issues of not having experience in the area of law, area of law, and no one will give me a chance to volunteer. Do you know of any places taking volunteers who have no experience in that field of law? Whatever your field of law is, there's people that you can work for. There's always lots of people. I don't know that you even need to volunteer. You can get a job anywhere. So I'll just tell you a quick story. I had a law firm in Malibu, California for a long time. And the law firm, basically what it did was it helped me with but helped the business with different things. Like if we had to go after someone for whatever, or someone came after us for something. Law firms always have work when you're representing companies. So I had this law firm for a long period of time. But in the entire history of the law firm, only a couple people, like two, ever walked into the office, gave a resume and said they would really like to work here because of blah, blah, blah. That only happened, I just want to let you know, that only happened a couple times in the entire history of the law firm. I don't know that you need to volunteer. I don't know what the areas of the practice of law you're interested in, but let's say you're interested, I don't know what it is. Maybe you want to switch to corporate law, I don't know, maybe you're in San Diego, corporate attorneys, Sacramento. Or no, let's say we said San Diego, India. Just an example. So you have all these people here, all these corporate attorneys. There are just tons of them, right? It's ridiculous how many of them there are. You can do that, or you can, whatever it is you want to do, you can find people that are interested in, that could potentially be places where you could work. So they're all over. There's tons and tons of them. You can find them very easily. You don't need to. It's just not that hard because there's so many people that can do it. I mean, that you can work for. It's ridiculous. Anyway. So there's so many places you can work in different practice areas. Now, this woman here, I don't know who this is, Trust Law. Does she have a website? Maybe not. But this particular firm, they probably don't get a lot of people trying to work there. It's a small law firm with Elizabeth Trupp as a principal. But all these types of places, they're all over. And there's so many places you can work. So you don't need to volunteer. There's people that will hire you in every practice area if you really want to work there. And just these people that walked into my office looking for a job, out of those two, I hired one of them. I'm not saying you have to walk into a place, but if you really want to work someplace and you have a convincing story for wanting to have someone help you in that practice, wanting to get a job in that practice area, you're going to be able to do it. It's not hard. There's so many attorneys out there, solo practitioners, small law firms, lots of people that love to have your help. You just need to go after it and really want it. And thanks everyone for asking these questions. There's a lot of these questions have been pretty good so far. I'm in the process of transitioning specialties, can you recommend resources or methods to upskill? Specifically, I'd like to gain more proficiency in privacy, data protection, but I'm not sure where to start. Okay, so people that do into privacy data protection, they typically, I don't know, but there's various certifications that you can get for privacy law. So you can worry about that. You can get that. There's networking groups for privacy law. There's all sorts of different things you can do to get involved if that's what you want to do. And then you start reading about it, you get involved, you get enthusiastic about it, and you really do everything you possibly can to get better in this practice area and to learn more about it. And the more of that you do, the better off you're going to be. So you need to just basically throw yourself into it, and you need to start networking. You need to work yourself up into a frenzy and just be super enthusiastic about it, completely fired up. And that's it. But you need a reason. You can't so a lot of times people make the mistake, and this is very common. People make the mistake of going into something because everyone else is doing it, they think it'd be smart, or because they've heard stories about people going to something making a lot of money. And this is what's happened for the past couple of years in privacy law. So they hear stories like this, and so they go into it. Or they hear other people are being successful, people are getting jobs, all this sort of stuff. So they go into it. And I don't know if that's the best way of running your career. I remember I had a friend, and best friends I grew up with when that was my childhood friend, he was at Michigan State and heard that packaging was a good major. People were getting jobs doing that. There was a lot of demand. So he went into that, and he made the right decision because it was actually very good for him. But a lot of times people will do things like they'll go into things because they think that other people are doing it, or it's a cool thing to do, or they can make a lot of money doing it. And so when people do that, they can end up not doing well if you choose something. So you need to go into something that gets you fired up and you like. You can't just go into something because you think it's a good thing. You need to go into something because it really interests you. You may be interested in, your major interest might be, I don't know what it could be, but whatever it is you're interested in. I met a guy once that I was practicing law with that was interested in pinball machines of all things, and would have pinball things shipped into his office. And it was just hilarious. And that's what he should have been doing. People are interested in different types of things, and whatever you're interested in, if you're interested in it, then you should do it, but you shouldn't go into something that you don't know anything about or you're not learning about. If you're interested in something, you'll find ways to get experience. And these, let me just see these questions here. I have a question here that I'm going to answer. I'm just going through some of the other questions because these look like pretty much a lot of the questions. So if anybody has an extra question, any other questions, I'll answer them. This looks like maybe one of the last ones. So I've been getting interviews for the past couple of years for solid positions, but never get them, like 7 in the past 2 years. Why do you think it is? I usually make the second interview, but no offers. Okay. Again, I'll go back to the stuff that happens. The screening interviews are more about you're getting screening interviews. And so screening interviews are more about things like, can you do it? Do we like you? And that sort of stuff. And then when you start getting into your second interviews, people are looking and asking questions. And really the most important thing in second interviews is whether or not the firm really likes you. Do people like you? Do they feel like you can do they feel like they can get along with you? Are you connecting? So there's kind of 2 sets of interviews. So two sets of interviews. There are the partners, and then there are associates. So associates are partners. Partners, if you were a partner, they want hardworking, working, gung-ho people, like people are all in, will do whatever asked. So that's what partners want. So partners want these sorts of people when they're interviewing. Associates, on the other hand, who's may or may not carry a lot of weight. They want people that are non-threatening to them. That could be their friends, right? And that's, you can get more into it, but et cetera. Or if it's more senior, so that would be people at your class year, same seniority level, would be that. Or if they're senior, same thing, people who do whatever's asked, but not threaten them, whatever is asked, and not threaten them and make them look good. That's it. This is what partners want. This is what associates want. So these are the things that each of these people want. So you may not be getting the job because you're not giving partners the right impression when they get in. I think you're probably giving partners the right impression, but you may not be giving specifically senior associates. You're coming across as being threatening or not making them look good. I don't know what it is, but partners want different things from associates. What are you doing in your interviews? These are some of the things that tend to create problems. There's this document that I don't know if I've circulated to my candidates. I don't know that it's public, but sometimes when you interview, these are things that are important. You have to make sure that you seem manageable. So have to seem that that you're what you're talking about and things. So these are just things that I would recommend. But the biggest thing I think with interviews, and you can read all sorts of things online that I've written, but I would say that these are things being managed, really wanting the job. Is this person, are they going to stick around if they're hired? These are all the things that people are asking. And then, so you have to understand if you're doing that. And then the next one is the 2 sets of interviews. Partners want hardworking, gung-ho people. Associates want people that are not threatening. So all these things are very important for you and to come across that way. And if you, then that's going to create a problem. Okay, I think those are all the questions for today. And certainly I appreciate everyone being here. I think this was a very important webinar. I think that people that listen to this stuff and stick around this, I've just seen so many careers change by listening to and following this sort of advice. And my mission personally is to help people in the legal profession, and that's what I'm doing. And so you should also have missions as well. And the idea of these missions is that when you have them, you start thinking, who am I that I'm doing? What is it that I'm doing that's taking me to this mission? What can everything just starts circulating for you around those goals. And then you end up achieving them. If people that show up to these webinars, that go to them, that watch them, that end up doing very well. And there's not a lot of people out there that are seeking this kind of knowledge. Most people think they know everything. And I just want to commend everyone that's on this webinar that you're doing a great job. And the most important thing you can do is to learn this sort of information and to be hungry for it. And the thing is that very few people are hungry for this sort of information. I just want to tell you that I certainly appreciate you and the work you're doing to work on yourself and be here. And also it's going to make a difference for you, your family, and really everything that you want to do and accomplish in your life. Thank you. And I will talk to everyone next week. Thanks.